This is the RPM Podcast, starring Scott Riggleman.
Here comes Scott Riggleman trying to fill that hole.
Tim Riggleman.
Holy crap. He's a freaking animal, by the way. He's got a hell of a pumper on that thing. He is a heck of a pusher. We're like a bulldozer.
And Josh Matthews.
Could you see yourself being a pool guy, though? The level of work seems ridiculous. Stupid.
And here we are again. Episode 176 of the RPM Podcast. It is June 30th at 7:56 p.m. We haven't been on in a few weeks. I went away for a couple weeks down in Florida. I'll tell you a little bit more about my trip. My brother loves when I talk about my Florida Keys trip on the show. I'm Scott Riggleman down in Manchester, New Jersey. My brother Tim Riggleman is up in Farmingdale, New Jersey. Tim, how are you?
Good. We had a great weekend of racing. I can't wait to talk about it.
And down in Waretown, New Jersey, our producer of our show is Joshua Matthews. Joshua, how are you?
Honestly, I just found out I'm going to have some minor back surgery and elbow surgery. But otherwise, all right.
And we have a very special guest on tonight. We finally got somebody from the very famous Spencer family. Unfortunately, we didn't get Ed Spencer or Jamie Spencer, but we did get Larry Spencer, all the way from Natticoke, Pennsylvania. Larry, how are you?
Great, Scott. Unfortunately, you got the least famous of the Spencers.
we didn't even get Larry Spencer Sr. We didn't even get Larry Spencer Jr. We got Larry Spencer III. That's how far down the list we had to go to get a Spencer on the show.
Or if you search online, it's Larry Spencer III.
You almost got the generic brand, but
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do. Sometimes the generic's just as good. Hopefully tonight that's the case.
Well, Larry, I mean, you're a fellow race enduro car driver like me and Josh. Josh has run very, very many enduros. He even ran the snow enduro up in Evergreen with us. Of course, I ran enduros with you quite a bit. I was always in the 8 cylinders. You run the 4 cylinders. But we did do something pretty cool in 2013. We both won the championship. I won one in the big car division. You won one in the 4-cylinder division. So we got to share our championship spotlight at the banquet that year, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember we took a picture on the track after the race too together, and that was really neat. That was real cool, Scott.
Yeah, and it was pretty cool going to the bank because there was a lot of the Spencers there, and it was pretty cool being out in Pennsylvania where Jimmy Spencer, the NASCAR Cup star, came from, and I got to celebrate a championship with a fellow Spencer at the banquet. And it was pretty cool. I do remember you running the 24 number a couple times. What made you decide to run the 24 a couple of times when you did that?
I mean, that number, it's been everything really for my family. I mean, from originally how it started, and when Jimmy's dad, Ed Sr., started racing, him and his brother, they all ran different variations of the numbers. Like Ed ran the 24. I want to say my Uncle Cy ran the 26 or 28, and my great-grandfather Charles, when he raced, he ran the number 30. So obviously Ed was the most successful of the bunch racing-wise, so 24 kind of stuck. And then throughout the years, I mean, I couldn't tell you how many members of my family have run the 24 at some point. I have. That was primarily my dad's number. He didn't race too much. He ran mainly enduros at Evergreen, some at Mahoning, Big Diamond, Grandview, a little bit here and there, probably mid to late 2000s. And then my cousin Eddie's run the 24. My cousin Marky's run the 24. So basically almost everybody that's been racing in the family has run the 24 at some point as an homage, as a respect for the patriarch of the family, really.
So what division? LMP1 or... Oh, different 24. Sorry.
Larry's a lot like me. He always likes running the cheaper divisions, the affordable divisions, I like to call them. I did dabble in the modifieds a little bit, especially the year when Wall closed down in 2008. I did run the full sport mod division season up at Mountain Speedway, and it was fun. And I finished 4th in points, and I came real close to getting a feature win. I finished a couple of seconds and thirds to guys like Earl Pauls and stuff like that. But I truly shine on the more affordable division, and Larry's pretty much like me too. He'd rather run the more affordable divisions and do very well in them,
Scott, didn't one of the Spencers take your car out at Flemington one time?
Gary Spencer actually took my car out at Flemington one time. He came there and he was just walking around and he got talking to me about the handling of my car. And I said, well, why don't you jump in and take it out for a a practice, and he did. And he came back, and he was very, very knowledgeable about the chassis. And I was very young at the time. I was only 18 or 19, and Gary took my car out. And he did about 10, 15 laps with it and came in it, and he helped me make a few adjustments. And I went out on my heat race, and the car actually did run better. He actually stuck around and helped us all night. It was me and Dad, actually, Tim and Gary Spencer, just came to hang out for the night, and he helped me quite a bit that night. He was a nice guy.
And in case somebody doesn't, if they don't know the lineage, Gary is one of Jimmy's brothers. They all raced, Jimmy, Gary, Paul, and Ed Jr., who they called Hammer. He didn't run as much. He was always more the crew chief in the pits guy. But they say that Paul, next to Jimmy, Paul was the best, the smoothest, not would drive over his head. You know what I mean?
I remember Paul racing a modified. I think it was North Wilkesboro or something. He almost won that race too. It was 150 a lapper down there, and he almost won that race. I remember Paul racing modifieds quite a bit, and he was good.
Yep. That was before, because I was born in 92. So they ran when Paul was running. It was right about that time when I want to say he ran Loudon too in the modified at one point, right when Loudon first opened. And yeah, he was decent. He definitely, like I said, next to Jimmy, he could have made it. Paul could have made it. But family, he went the family route, went the business route. But it's funny that you brought up Gary, because I was always told that the closest one in the family I race is Gary, who was just wide open from the top of the green flag until the checkered. He was the most.
He showed up at Flemington one day to watch, and he was walking around. And my father had an old ramp truck we towed with, and that's the reason he actually even walked over in the first place. He was checking out our ramp truck. He really, really liked our setup. It was an older Ford pickup, made into a ramp truck, and he was really checking that out. And then he just asked if he could. And a lot of people hung out by our ramp truck because you can sit up on the tire rack in the infield and see the whole track. So he just kind of asked if he could stand on our tire rack to watch practice, And he watched me in the first couple of practices. He's like, "Oh, your car looks like it's doing this. Let's try this. Let's try that." And I said, "Well, there's one more practice. Why don't you jump in it real quick?" And he did. He was pretty cool. I think he's the one that actually came back, and I think he came back to race the racing championship or something. I think he had a Camaro painted blue at 24. Tim, you remember that? And he hit the inside guardrail there where the opening to the pits came out, and he hit real hard. It was a pretty bad wreck.
It was definitely I remember the wreck, but I couldn't tell you which Spencer was driving the car.
All right. Well, the reason we have Larry on tonight is because Evergreen Speedway held a great race weekend up there on a Sunday. And Larry's this year he's doing the announcing with Ted Groh. Ted Groh's also been on our show numerous times. We were going to ask Ted to come on again tonight, but we decided to give Larry a shot because every time we get Ted on the show, he has very poor internet connection. He drops in and out on us. So we're giving Larry a shot up there in Natticoke, Pennsylvania you live in?
Nanticoke, yeah. Yep.
How far is that from the track?
I'm probably, if you would get on 81 North, if you're leaving the track, you hop on 81 North. 25 minutes from the track. I'm 15 minutes from Berwick and 25 minutes from Evergreen.
Okay, yeah. So right now you got great internet connection, so we're glad that happened. What made you decide to go to the announcing route this year at Evergreen?
Well, I'll give you the short, long story. I started announcing at Mountain in 2009 when Gino was still up there. Teddy was there 2008, and then he got hurt. He hurt his knee or something happened to where he couldn't make it to the track for the rest of the year. I want to say he had to have some kind of surgery. So I was 15, 16 at the time, and just from doing interviews, being around the track, talking to Gino and all that. Mike Odwosny, actually, they needed an announcer. Mike didn't want to do it. He was race director at the time. So they called me, and I'm like, a 16-year-old kid who's been going to the track for as literally long as I can remember. I'm like, absolutely. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea, what it took to actually announce a race just hearing Gene Ostrowski all those years doing it. I'm like, I think I could do that. So from 2009 until the end of 2013, I was every week announcer with Gino. So then when 2014, new promotion came in, they lasted that half season in 2014 and the place was closed in 2015. I did a couple shows from 2016 up until last year, filling in here and there, mainly when Gino was still there. And then this year they got It's still the same promoter, Jason Makarevich, and they have a new race director. Basically, top to be underneath Jason down are all new people, and it's new people that either I've known my entire life, or actually another one of the Spencers, one of my cousins, Ted Spencer, is one of the tech guys. So basically, it was a new regime came in. I went up last weekend racing, and they needed a guy to come, basically come up and help, kind of do victory lane and help Teddy out up in the booth, because there's nothing harder than trying to announce a race by yourself.
It's actually boring announcing by yourself. You need someone to bounce stuff off of,
And absolutely. And I mean, Ted and I both announced, like I said, at different times under Gino. So we kind of are from the same school of announcing almost, announcing with him all those years. So it's like we've done a couple shows together in the past. So when he called and said, "Hey, you want to come up?" After I seen the direction of the new promotion that was happening last week, and I'm like, yes, absolutely, I'm going to be on board.
I tell you what, I really enjoyed you guys up there. I thought guys did a great job. I was sitting in the grandstands. My brother was sitting in the grandstands, and I was pleasantly surprised how well you and Ted do. I think Ted's a great announcer. I really think he does a great job. And with you and him working together, I really enjoyed sitting there listening to it. It is, just like any other racetrack, it's hard to hear you during the race itself, but in between the races, I think you guys did a great job keeping everybody informed of what was going on, what they were selling at the concession stands. I mean, even like during the intermission, you let the people in the grandstands know you have 15 minutes to get up and do what you got to do. It went a little longer than 15 minutes. You kept saying, "I'll probably in about 5 more minutes we're gonna get started." So start finding your way back to your seat, stuff like that. I really enjoyed it. Tim, what did you think of the announcing up there?
I thought they did a great job. They clicked together. They worked good together. Everything was nice and clear. It was great because there was me included. There was people there. I don't know who they were in certain cars, and they were good about saying, who was in this car and who was in that car. So everything went really well.
Scott,
to tell you the truth, I went there blind too, and I wasn't sure who was in what modified too, and they did do a good job. Like, for example, I didn't know Chuck Hasselfeld was driving that other number 1 car. Another car I wasn't aware of was the Zane Ziner car. Can you tell us a little bit about that car that Zane's driving this year up there?
Yeah, I didn't. Honestly, before yesterday, I didn't know Zane was running either. And then he came out, and I know it's not one of his cars. I know that he's driving it for somebody this year. And the thing was fast. I mean, it was
real fast.
I was surprised because I didn't know. I don't ever remember even seeing the car up there. So I'm not sure.
I'm so used to seeing Zane in like a 76 or something like that. And what was that car, a 22 or something like that?
Yeah, it was a white number 22. And I mean, he gave Hirschman everything he had. Yeah, that's for sure. On his last restarts, absolutely.
All right, Tim, we'll start right from the beginning of Evergreen. I mean, I woke up 9 a.m. down here. Nancy wanted me to make her breakfast. I made her breakfast. As we're sitting there eating breakfast, we're trying to figure out what we're going to do on our Sunday. I mean, we had 3 options down here. Well, really 4 options. The first option is I want to go out in the garage and work on my race car. She said, "No, it's Sunday. You're not racing until July 10th. We're doing something today together." I said, "Okay, we got 3 choices. We can either sit on the couch all day." There's 3 NASCAR races going on in Pocono. You had the truck race, you had the Xfinity race, and you had the Cup race, all coming from Pocono, televised all day. I said, we can just veg out. I can make food all day. We can sit here and watch it. So the other option we have, it's still early enough. We can leave and we can head up to Evergreen Speedway. They got a great race going on, 75-lap modified race. Ted's been posting all week on Facebook the entries for it. She's looking at the entry list. She's like, "Scott, there's some heavy hitters in this race." I mean, Jimmy Showtime Blewett's up there. You got Anthony Cecily up there, Zane Ziner, Chuck Hasselfeld, of course, Matt Hirschman. A lot of our wall guys were going up there. Blake Barney, Ricky Collins, Dom Fataruso, Jonathan Mondano. She was really leaning towards going to Evergreen. I said, well, the third option is Bridgeport. Bridgeport was opening back up, brand new racetrack. I said, I kind of want to go check out Bridgeport because we're racing there July 18th with our 8 cylinders. I said, we can go see the new track, see what's going on. She's like, they don't start racing until night, 6, 7 o'clock at night. We can go to Evergreen. It was a 2 o'clock start at Evergreen. We can get out of there 5, 6 o'clock, be home by 9 p.m. She's like, I'd rather go to Evergreen. So literally like at 11 a.m. in Manchester, New Jersey, we decided we were going to go to Evergreen. We called another friend. He said, I can be at your house by noon. We left here at 12 o'clock. We were up there by 2:30, 3 o'clock. We missed modified heats. That's the only thing we missed. We got in time for all the street stock heats and stuff like that. My brother went a different route. I got on Facebook at 9 a.m. My brother was already sitting in the parking lot. He must have left his home in Farmingdale at 6 a.m. to get up there. Tim, tell us a little bit about your trip up there.
Yeah, I drive with Gary McGuigan, and Gary's the other, and he wants to be there. He wants to be first. And after we get there, it pays off because we always have a really close parking spot. So that's a good thing for me. And the pit gate opened at 10. He wanted to be there at 10. We got there about a little after 9. There was 2 people aligned when we got there. So,
we pulled in that parking about 2:30 p.m., 2:45 p.m., and it was cool. It was really cool coming down that hill along behind the racetrack, looking down at the racetrack, seeing the place packed. I mean, the grandstands were packed, the pits were packed. There was race cars on the track. The sun was shining. All the grass was cut, and nice green grass. We came down that hill and looked at the track, and we said, man, this is going to be a great day of racing. We pull in the parking lot. Parking lot's full. I was so happy to see that place have a full parking lot and full grandstands. We paid our $20 to get in. We walked in. We found a place to sit, and we watched the races. Larry, were you very happy with the crowd? I'm sure Jason that runs the track had to be happy. He finally had a day where everything lined up perfect for him. He wasn't really racing against nothing because there was no fans at the big track. Mahoney Valley, what got rained out the night before. He finally had the good weather day and the good race day in the area where the full focus was on Evergreen.
Oh, absolutely. And last Sunday was their opening day, and it was not as good as a turnout as Sunday's race with the modifieds, but it was a 50-lap late model race, and it was packed. I mean, it was compared to years past, compared to races packed. It was packed last week, so we was happy with that. It's like, okay, we got something to build off of. But then Sunday was, I mean, it was like you said, Scott, it was just incredible. I mean, you were there in 2013 when we were winning championships in the enduros, you and I, and you remember how lean the crowd was. I mean, there were nights there where there were probably honestly only a couple hundred people there. So to see what Jason's been building on since he took the lease over in 2016, it's definitely gotten better and better and better. And like you said, when you're the only show in town, when you're not competing against anybody, it was really nice to see. And like I said, like you said, the place was just packed. There was people everywhere.
And I tell you what, Jason's had a bad run of luck up there. I tell you what, I've never met Jason. I've never even really talked to him. I don't even know what he looks like or anything, but I can tell you just by paying attention, through Facebook and, of course, being a race fan and, of course, loving Evergreen Speedway, I always follow how they do. And one thing I learned about Jason, he's not a quitter because he could have thrown the towel a couple years ago because it seems like everything fights him. Like he'll have everything planned out perfect and then it rains out. Or I think one time there was like a fugitive running around in the area and the FBI made him cancel or something like that. Like crazy stuff has happened to this guy where most people would have threw the towel in, and he's been toughing it out,
Well, last year alone, the number of rainouts was absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go. He starts this year, and he's got to deal with the COVID stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, this guy can't catch a break. So to see that place packed on Sunday, even though I never personally met Jason, I was very, very happy for that guy, and I hope he's finally making a little bit of money on his return. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the biggest thing, too, even, with figuring out a day to race, because like you said, the last thing anybody wants or anybody could do is try to go up against Mahoning Valley on a Saturday night.
Right.
So for a while there, he was doing Friday nights in the summertime because it was too hot on Sundays. And you guys know how Friday night racing goes. It's tough to get people there.
Right.
Just by the time you get out of work.
Friday night is Big Diamond. Big Diamond still packs them in on a Friday night, but they do a late start. They start like 8:00 at night,
Big Diamond, I always notice too, it almost seems like it's a community thing. Like if you're from that Minesville, Pottsville area, there's really, in that coal country there's really not a lot to do. So basically, you're from that area, you either race at the track, know somebody that races at the track, or know somebody going to the track. So that's almost like
even like all the competitors are right from that area. Even when you drive through town going to the racetrack, you see race cars in everybody's garages right down the street from the track. So it's a very close, everybody that participates there and goes there are nearby anyway.
So you're saying it's a lot of coal country. I mean, are you closer to, or is Big Diamond closer to like Shamokin?
Big Diamond's closer.
Yeah, Big Diamond's right by Shamokin, kind of.
Okay. Well, and to illustrate your point, there was that thing. It went viral. It was Dunkin' Donuts. They had a fire in the bathroom and they had to close, and everybody in the town was so upset that Dunkin' Donuts was closed. I mean, it was like huge news. And the one comment I saw was, or somebody from the area had written in saying that town is nothing but inbred coal trash. So,
but I tell you, I love racing Big Diamond. It is kind of weird because they do have a short season up there. And I said, why do you guys stop racing in September? Like September 1st, like Labor Day weekend, they're done racing. And I'm like, you guys can race into at least end of September, early October. And they said, once high school football starts up there, they can't compete with high school football on Friday nights.
Yeah, and the thing too with that is Big Diamond is, I mean, it's fair. It's not close, but it's fairly close to a Grandview. So almost like the situation with Evergreen and Mahoning, Big Diamond's kind of in the box where they could either do Friday nights or Sunday afternoons because they're not trying to compete against Grandview.
Yeah. But anyway, getting back to Evergreen, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I sat down, I watched the heat races, and then the modifieds, started up. Unfortunately, we had one of our rising stars from our area. And this how tough the competition was at Evergreen, Josh. Blake Barney didn't even qualify. He missed the cut. Ricky Collins didn't qualify.
wow.
So unfortunately, I didn't get to watch those two young kids from this way race. But this shows you how tough it is. And to tell you the truth, it was a great day of racing, don't get me wrong. But, of course, I got to pick out a couple of things to complain about. One of the things I'm complaining about is they only started 20 modifieds. And I've talked to Ted about this, and Ted explained to me, we have started more modifieds. Whenever we start more than 20 modifieds, it's like a wreck fest, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. 22, 24, I think they could have started. I think they could have put 2 or 4 more modifieds on the track. Larry, how do you feel about the 20-car starting field?
From what they did yesterday with the 4 cylinders was what they had said was if there's 22 or less, they'll start them all. If there's 23 or more, they'll start 20.
Right.
So that's probably the same deal with the modifieds. But I mean, hell, if it was up to me, I'd start them all every week and just pay the top 20. That's what I was always a proponent of. Okay, you want 20 cars to start. You got to finish in the top 20 to get paid. We'll let you race. We're not going to send you home, but only the top 20 get money. That way, everybody that shows. I mean, of course, if there's 35 cars, okay, maybe not. Might not be able to do that. But if it is, like you said, if there is a couple extra, 2, 4, 6, or whatever extra, run them all, pay the top 20, and then everything matters. Then, like if you're, you know what I mean. If you're thinking about parking it, you're in 2030. Like, oh man, if 3 more cars wreck out, we're at least going to get the $300 start money or whatever that it was yesterday.
See, the way I feel, if there's 20, if they say they're going to start 20, and there's 25, and then they decide, okay, we're going to take all 25, they shouldn't have heat races. They should have time trials. So you don't wreck your car. You're already qualified. Do you know what I mean? You're risking wrecking your car for something that you're already qualified in.
I tell you what, Larry, I'm glad you explained that to me, what happened and how they did it. It does make sense. You do have to have a cutoff somewhere, because even if, like you said, all right, if there's 20, we start 20 cars, but if there's 22, we start 22. If there's more than 22, then we start 20. And that makes sense. And here's why, because here I am saying, well, they should start 24 cars. Now it's a 24-car starting field and there's 25 there. Now I'm mad they're sending 1 car home. You know what I'm saying? Like, where does it end? Where does it get cut off? So the way you explained it made sense to me. We'll throw an extra 2 in, but we're not going to throw an extra 4 in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's the thing. They never want to send, like you said, 1, even 2 guys home. They want to get it to where people get their money's worth and people, you know what I mean? It's worth their trip coming up. But no, like you were saying with Blake Barney and Ricky Collins missing the show yesterday on Sunday, that was probably the best modified field, top to bottom, driver and equipment wise, that I've ever seen at the track, whether it be King of the Mountain, King of the Green, whatever, like in the last probably 10 years, top to bottom, talent wise, equipment wise, that was the best 25 entries I've ever seen at the place.
You know what? It was almost like a little mini tour race. I mean, you had Jimmy Blewett in there, you had Matt Hirschman in there, you had Chuck Hosfeld in there, you had Ronnie Silk there. You know what I'm saying? It was pretty big names there,
Yeah, and even like the local guys from up here, that Austin Koshnosh was there, Earl Paulus, Brian DeFebo, Bobby Jones, like guys that, mainly Mahoning Evergreen guys, the best of the Mahoning Evergreen guys were there as well. So you had all the out of town guys, like you had said, the guys with tour experience, ROC experience, and then you had the best of the guys from the two tracks. It was crazy. And I know we'll get into the race a little bit, but I don't know if I've ever seen Brian DeFebo get lapped at Evergreen.
Oh, I know. I was telling my wife Nancy, I said, Brian DeFebo is a very good racer. I think he's got multiple track champions at racetracks up that way. I've seen him win 100 lappers, and here he was getting lapped.
I want to say to Tim's point about switching from heat races to time trials. I can totally see where you don't want to risk or add risk of wrecking your equipment, but I mean, you run that risk in the feature anyway, and especially when you're trying to get fans in, you really want to put them to sleep with time trials.
Perfect. To defend what Josh thinks too. I mean,
hold on, I'm getting mad now. Perfect example is they had heat races, and Ricky Collins junked somebody out, and then he pulls off the track because they black flagged him. So now there's that's exactly. But if there would have been time trials, that wouldn't have happened.
Right. But then again, if it's announced that everybody qualifies and you're racing your heat race for your starting position, then people won't race too hard to qualify because they know they're going to be in. It's just a matter of where they're going to start.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
No, I think that there's if you know that you're in a qualifying position, I think, generally, like, let's say it goes to a Conci for, let's say, the factory stocks.
I'll tell you what, the Conci was exciting, though. I enjoyed the Conci. I was watching Blake Barney and Ricky Collins trying to qualify.
But I was going to wait till Josh got done and then say, when there is a set in stone, we're taking 20 cars, that's it. That was the best race of the day. The exciting race of the day was, they were all great racing, but the Conci, everybody was watching it.
But I was going to say that, like, from my experience from, let's say, Turkey Derby, if they say that they're going to take 6 from the Conci, let's just pick that. Yeah. If you're in the top 3, you guys kind of just ride there because you made it in, and you're not going to wreck each other. So, I mean, there is a little bit more give on that part. So, I mean, yes, there's still a risk. Somebody can make a bonehead move, but we run that risk every time we get in the car and go on the track.
Right. And Larry already explained to us what was said for the 4 cylinders, and it does make sense to me now. But even when it was all said and done, I think as a promoter, I would have did what the Race of Champions used to do back in the 90s. I would have had a couple promoters' choices. I would have said, all right, Blake Barney, you're in. And maybe the kid that got wrecked under caution, all right, you're in too. Fix your car and get out there. You know what I'm saying? I would have still snuck in 2 more cars, I think. I think 22 would have been good with 2
I'm all about this promoter's choice is something from the back in the day. They should really do that again,
Yeah, no doubt. And one of the guys, like you said, on top of Barney and Collins, who missed the show, was Brian Soanes. And Brian Soanes has been racing at Evergreen from all the way from the factory stocks all the way up through. And I think he finished 6th. I think he was the first guy to miss the show. So he was, from what I heard, he was beating the table pretty hard to try to get a promoter's choice provision, top 10 in points last year type provisional.
Yeah, there you go.
At the beginning of the day, they said, that's what kind of how they explained it. It's like, listen, it's 20. We don't want anybody arguing. We don't want anybody, you know what I mean? Yeah. You knew coming in it was 20. So if we bend the rules for you, like you said, we don't want to have to explain to somebody else, well, why did we let this guy in and not this other guy?
Yeah, but for a big race like that, I would have thrown 2 promoters. Because Evergreen's not a big track, but it's not tiny like Mahoney Valley. It can hold 22 modifieds, no problem,
Having too many cars is a good problem for the track.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a learning situation for those guys. I mean, all in all, the place was packed. The grandstands. There was a lot of people at that little track that's not used to getting that much attention every week. They handled it very well. The concession stands, there was never really a long line. For a lot of people there, they got their people in and out of the concession stands. Nobody waited for their food. They actually were smart enough to have a couple porta johns there. They handled everything well. Everything went well. They were smooth, no problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said with the concessions, I hadn't eaten all day, and the street stocks were the last feature of the day. So I'm like, man, I'm starving. I said to Ted, I'm like, I got to get something to eat, dude. I'm dying. So I went down to concession stand, and I was expecting it to be like opening night at Mahoning. quick, short, fun story. Opening night at Mahoning, they sold out of hot food, period. There were that many people opening night at Mahoning. I had to sweet talk the girl working a snack shack for a half a cheesesteak because they had enough meat left to make a half a cheesesteak sandwich. Evergreen on Sunday, went down expecting to say, oh, we're out of this, this, and this, and this. I asked them. I said, hey, what do you guys still have? She's like, oh, we still have pretty much the entire menu. So they were prepared. They were prepared to have that volume, that many people, food-wise, and that was surprising for me even.
They did run out of something because when I went after the modified race, and the girl said, we got everything on the menu except this. I think it was like a chicken parm or something like that they were out of, but they were out of one thing.
That was a chicken bacon ranch probably. That seemed to be the...
Is that what it was? Yeah, she did tell me they were out of one item, but I wasn't ordering that item anyway. I went with the traditional Josh Matthews chicken fingers, the safe route, and pierogies. Pierogies were very good.
Well, as long as they're not getting their food like Joe Exotic was getting that served
from the Walmart truck.
Hell, I would eat some of that stuff. That was good. The food there it was very hot. I had one chicken finger all day. But the food looked amazing. The cheesesteaks looked like they were made right on Seaside Boardwalk, all cut up with the cheese and the onions, and the hot dogs look good.
Josh, you notice we haven't even talked about the races yet, and we're already talking about the concessions thing.
I was going to say, at what time is it? We're already on food?
And the Gatorade was so cold, my Gatorade had ice in it. So,
oh, that's awesome. That's perfect.
You know what else was going to like about that place, Scott, is they had a photo booth there. I know Wall Stadium still has a photo booth, but in this day and age, a lot of racetracks don't have photo booths anymore.
How did you get to the photo booth, too? Because I thought that was on the other side of the
it was in the pit side, I guess. I don't know if you can go from the grandstand.
I guess you walk in just to go to the photo booth again. Because I looked and saw the photo booth, and I'm like, I got to go through the pit gate to get to it,
No, there's a window on each side. Like,
there is. Okay.
Itself, yeah. There's a pit side window and a grandstand side. And I'm happy you brought the photo booth up because they have a guy, Bill Elkins, who's the first-time photographer this year at the track. Photographer, videographer, and he came from the drift scene, and the drifters are real. Like, that place is packed when they have those drift shows,
right?
And like that's one of Jason's big, like you said earlier, about doing good finally with weather-wise and stuff. The drifters were almost carrying the load there for the last couple of years because they would pack in a couple hundred entries to run. They would run that's why they put that infield chicane almost in the infield there for the drifters. So they would run the entire pit area, set up courses out onto the track in through the chicane. And Bill came from that scene. Bill was there, came for I forget what race he came for last year, but towards the end of the year, one of the bigger shows, saw it, loved it. It was like, hey man, you know what I mean? I want to be the photographer here. And he takes excellent photos. There's a lot of good photographers that do come up to Evergreen, always get good shots. And Bill's definitely, his stuff really stands out with the angles and the filters he gets. So this is the first year that the photo stand's been open in quite a while.
Yeah. Well, one thing I was a little disappointed about too, I didn't see any like Evergreen t-shirts for sale. Was there t-shirts for sale?
I don't know if there was any yesterday. I know in the past couple years that they've had some, but I don't know if they got any kind of fresh batch or anything in for.
He might have waited with this COVID stuff going on. He's probably afraid to order a big allotment of T-shirts to sell in case they weren't allowed to open with fans or something like that.
And as horrible as everything is with that I honestly believe really helped the track with you guys down there in Jersey not being open, nobody in New York being open.
Well,
I think that
in 2008, it's a shame to say between Mahoney Valley, Evergreen, and Wall Stadium, it's like we almost need one of them to close to make the other one successful. In 2008, when Wall Stadium didn't open, Joe Calavini did very good at Mountain Speedway because all our Jersey people went up there and raced. He actually started a whole little racing thing for the Wall divisions on Sundays. He gave us 7 weeks of race, and then he started like a little Wall Stadium series up there for us, and he benefited very well from it. And now Wall's not open again, and everybody's flocking out to Evergreen, and Mahoney Valley. So yeah, it does work out for you guys,
There were a lot of people in the stands from Wall Stadium.
I tell you what, everybody I seen from Wall Stadium who are diehard Wall Stadium fans really enjoyed Evergreen. Like I saw Ed Marissi, our cousin Tim, he loved it up there. I saw Jeffrey Green, who works with Elliott Wall. He was having a great time up there and enjoyed the racetrack. It was cool. It kind of forces some people to go out their comfort zone and travel around a little bit and see other racetracks. And I think now that they've been up there and they realize that the ride's not that bad and the racing's really good up there, I think they'll even return one wall. It does open up for maybe a King of the Green type weekend and stuff like that.
Yeah, that or when Wall has the drift weekend, that would be a good weekend. I know some people go out and do camping or whatever, but that would be a good weekend to shoot over to Evergreen.
Or even when Evergreen has a Sunday show. I mean, we get out of Wall at a decent time. You can still go home, go to bed, wake up in the morning, and shoot up there on a Sunday and watch some great racing.
Yeah, especially if you're more in North Jersey. Then it only benefits you, as opposed to Bridgeport. When for me that was like a 2-hour drive from Toms River, and it's a 2-hour drive from Waretown because I'm stuck on Route 72 to 70 the whole way, and. Don't get me started on the construction at that one interchange with 295.
All right, get the results ready here, Josh. Let's start talking about the racing themselves. The feature started out with what they're calling a junior 4-cylinder class. Larry, can you tell us a little bit about this division? I don't remember ever seeing this division there. Is this something new?
Yeah, they started it last year for basically it's I know Mahoning's doing something similar, but I want to say Mahoning's is a rookie class. So the Mahoning version of it is it's guys and girls that don't have experience racing. There's no kind of real age limit on it. But the Evergreen one is kids 10 or 11 to 15 pre-driver's license, regardless of experience and stuff. And yeah, that they had probably 3, 4, 5 last year cars that showed up. They had probably 6 or 7 races with that, but Sunday to have 6 of them, including Jason Makarevich, the promoter's daughter, was out there. It was her first race. She didn't make it out for the feature, but she ran the heat race. And it's basically just a division that they started. I want to say it's the same exact rules as the regular 4-cylinders. And it's basically something for the kids to get their feet wet, get some experience against other kids. But I mean, we'll talk about it later on. We've seen Paulie Hartwig III and Micah Adams, who finished 1-2 in the junior race. Both of them were running top 6 in the 22-car field regular 4-cylinder race near the end of the race.
I tell you what were these divisions when I was a kid? I had to wait until I was 18. We didn't even have quarter midgets in New Jersey when I was a kid. I had to wait until I was 18 to race. Now these kids I think Paulie's 10 years old. He's out there racing.
Paulie's half retired already. He's been racing so long.
I know.
Yeah, for sure. And I know Micah Adams is 11. And, like you said, opportunities like that, even 15 – I started racing in 2007 at Evergreen, and I never drove anything in my life. I was 14 years old, and it was like we were talking earlier about one of the family junkyards. Guy couldn't make it that day, something going on. I think he was having a baby. His wife, he had some family things going on. The car was already there ready. There was an enduro coming up on that Sunday. It was Friday night. And now 2007, so the enduro rules were bar behind the seat, stock seats okay, 5-point harness. I was 14. I never drove a go-kart. I never drove a quarter midget. I never raced anything in my life. 14 years old, they're 100 lap enduro. Here we go. Never drove a car in my life.
Now, Scott Adams had two kids in that race, right? Or just one?
He took 4 cars yesterday. 3 of them in the junior race. I want to say only his son Micah ran the junior race. His daughter Mackenzie was supposed to. She had issues. I think the motor broke in her car. But then they have another car with a junior that Jasper. I don't know his last name. It's Jasper Z. It's some real long last name. But he was supposed to be a junior. He's right about Paulie's age and Micah's age. I guess they know him from the quarter midget track. He was in the regular race. He was running again top 6, top 7.
Yeah, we were at the motorsports show. We did a live RPM podcast from there, and we were lucky enough to have Scott Adams and his daughter Mackenzie come on the show, and they were very delightful to talk to. And we did learn something pretty cool when we interviewed him. I never knew what the Himmer Graphics meant. I thought maybe he bought the business and that was their name. Larry, do you know why it's called Himmer Graphics?
When Scott's wife at the time, Jen, was pregnant with Mackenzie, they didn't know if it was going to be a boy or a girl, so they would call him, her.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
It's funny.
It's called a Himmer Graphics. I thought that was a cool story. I didn't know if you knew that or not. I know you and Scott are pretty close. So I always thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, we got to talk to them a little bit about them going racing this year, and they were very excited to go racing. So it was cool to actually see them out on the racetrack. Josh, do you have the top 5 for the juniors? I think there was only 5 or 6 of them out there if you want to read them all off. Paulie did win it. Paulie ran a great race. I think he started on the pole and he just took off. And I tell you what, that car runs good. Paul has that car running real good. Doesn't smoke. It doesn't overheat. And it's so smooth. And little Paulie drives it so smooth. The car just keeps cruising around the racetrack, and he does a great job driving it. It was cool to watch.
It's basically unlike anything Paul drove in the factory stocks.
Right, where stuff the hood be blowing off, and they'd have a ratchet strap on it, and the exhaust pipe would be hanging off it, and the trunk lid would be blowing off. I tell you what, Paul's come a long way in preparing his race cars, because even his sport mod ran very good. That what they call them Evergreen mods now, but he even ran very good in that. Hit us with the results for the juniors.
Oh, so yeah, I will. Remember there was one time I think it was Paul and Ronnie both ran some type of mods up at Evergreen, and
they both caught fire.
Yeah.
I thought the funny thing about Sunday was little Paulie gets out like a typical driver. The guy asked him what's going to, he goes, I think I need a new right rear.
Yeah, he said the right rear is used up.
All right, so the junior 4-cylinder stocks, that was obviously we had talked about Paulie Hartwig III, Micah Adams, Elia Tito, Jaden Brown, Mia Guy, or is that Guy? I don't know. Okay, and a did not start was Caitlin. I'll let Larry.
Makarevich. That was Jason. That was Jason, the promoter's daughter. And funny, Elia Tito, who finished third, right? You said, Josh?
Yes.
It's Steve's daughter, right?
Steve's daughter. Yeah, Scott. You ran against her for years at Evergreen.
And Steve was there with a street stock. I was very surprised to see him out there running with the street stocks. I know him as an enduro car driver. It's pretty cool. Steve lives literally right around the corner from the racetrack. He actually passed his house when you go to the racetrack. And I did notice over the winter, he built a beautiful garage in his yard, and he's got it filled with race cars. And I think it's real cool that he's racing street stocks, and then he has his daughter in the 4-cylinders. I think it's real cool that he's racing at that track with his daughter. And another side note on Steve is, Steve kind of grew up at that track as a youngster, and it seemed like he always had a camera on him. He posts some really cool old pictures from when he was a kid in the grandstands there of the old Evergreen races, and they're Steve Tito photos. Like, he actually took them when he was a kid. So he's been around that racetrack for a very long time.
And they had Tito juice in the pits.
When I started,
they had the Tito juice in the pits.
Yeah, and he sells the Tito juice, which is pretty good stuff. Doesn't have alcohol in it. I guess he doesn't have a license to sell alcohol, but he makes the mix. And you add the alcohol too, and it's very good. It has like a cinnamon taste to it.
Yeah, Tito's been there as long as I have. I mean, Tito's been running the enduro since the enduro started when Anitz was up there.
Right.
He's been running up there since then. Yeah, in a long, long time. And he's not that old either. Like, he's mid-40s, so he's been going up there probably literally his entire life.
Do you know if he always lived right there at that house right there on 309?
As long as I've known him, he has. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, Steve's a pretty good guy. And he's a unique guy. He definitely loves racing. He loves it at Evergreen. He knows the history of the track, and he's cool to talk to him. I'm very glad to see him continue racing there with a street stock. I was surprised to see him move up to the street stock division, and he's also there with his daughter racing in the 4-cylinder division. So I think that's really cool. And their cars are painted very similar. So they look the same and everything. So it's pretty neat.
If my memory serves me correct, I want to say that street stock he has was one of Jimmy White Jr.'s old street stocks that he ran there almost 15 years ago now.
Yeah, I know on Facebook, by following what Steve does on Facebook a little bit, he had pictures of it when he got it, and I think it was pretty old. I was like, man, he's got
And that's when Jimmy White Jr. was rough around the edges. He was probably 15, 16 years old when he ran that street stock back then.
All right, so let's move on to the modified division, unless we're going to be here till midnight. The modified race was great. Unfortunately, they started 20 modifieds. Blake Barney, Rick Collins, Brian Soames didn't make it. But, man, what a starting lineup. Tim, Larry, just so you know, my brother Tim was up there. He was spotting for Jimmy Blowett. He also spotted for Michael Rising in the Evergreen mod race, the 03 crate modified from Wall Stadium. Tim, do you know if that was Jimmy's first time at Evergreen Speedway? I'm pretty sure that was his first time there.
I asked him in the pits. He said he was there one time for a 20-lap race that got rained out.
Uh-huh.
So he was there. He never raced a competitive green flag lap in a feature. I guess he ran a couple practice laps.
Yeah, I was just
Jimmy
gonna
went
ask
there
if
with a
you-
little bit different setup. I did see him down in Bullitt's Junkyard yesterday morning. Riggleman Towing does a lot of towing for Bullitt's Junkyard, so I do get to see Jimmy at work in the morning after a race weekend, so I do get to talk to him a little bit. I did see Jimmy down by the scale house. We talked a little bit. He went up there with a little bit different deal. He went up there with a wall modified, so he didn't have the tour type modified. He had a wet sump motor. He didn't have a dry sump motor. He did put a 4-barrel on the wall spec motor. He said he had plenty of motor. Motor wasn't the problem. He went with a 3-link setup in the rear end, and he think he would be better off with the older style Panhard bar setup. He said he just didn't have the forward bite that he really needed to keep up with Hirschman and them. And he said he was very surprised how fast of a pace those guys were setting early in the race, where he was more laying back, saving his tires for the end. And it did work for him. He was able to finish 4th, but he never quite got up to where Hirschman and it wasn't Eric Beers driving that car, right? It was his son.
Yeah, it was his son Austin who led. I mean, he probably led what Scott? Probably 35, 40 laps yesterday.
Yeah, but
Not
he was
only
burning
did he lead,
himself
he
up. I
passed
kept saying,
everybody.
slow down a little bit, you know.
Not only did he lead, he passed everybody on the outside to get to the lead.
Yeah, and for anybody who's never been to Evergreen, the outside is tough to get working in, especially in a modified.
And you know what, Larry? That's something I want to ask you too, because I remember a couple years ago, or even last year, they had that white line painted at the bottom. They wanted the people to stay higher up in the corners, not so they wouldn't kick rocks up on the track. And people didn't like that rule because now if you went to the outside, now you're really in the third groove trying to pass, and it was a hard rule to police because everybody would get their wheels under the white line and they get a black flag. I noticed Sunday they were able to run wherever they wanted through the corners. Is that white rule over with up there?
Yeah, under the new race director, he said, because that, like you had said, everybody had complained about that because it was almost impossible. It was almost a completely different track almost when you have to run that. Because in the 4 cylinders and stuff, I keep going back to that because that's pretty much what I know best. You want to be as close to the dirt as possible on the low side. And with that white line rule, it was almost impossible to pass in the corners.
Yeah, and I tell you what, now that white rule's gone, I was a little bit worried that they would kick up stones on the track and we'd have problems with that, but we didn't see that at all the whole day up there. The only thing I noticed is they had that cone a little too close to the racetrack for the restarts and stuff, and that got kicked up on the track a couple of times. I just think they should move that a foot or two back, and we wouldn't have any problems with anything getting kicked up on the track from being too low in the corners.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And like you said, I think maybe once there was a couple rocks in a heat race or something, but nothing crazy. It seems like down in turn 2 is where it's the worst. Because if coming through turn 2, you want to kind of hook that bottom to get the drive off the corner. And if you get the left sides in there, that's where the most dirt, where there's not almost any grass at all.
But I also noticed that the pavement itself gets a little rough there too. So if you go too low there, then you're dealing with some pretty big bumps anyway before you get to the rocks. So it's kind of good to leave those bumps there to try to keep the people up out of the stones,
absolutely.
Would it make sense to? I mean, we talk about the drifters adding that chicane and putting some more pavement. Would it make sense to pave just to the inside with a rumble strip? That way, it's not worth running on, but it also can avoid the rocks getting.
Yeah, what did they call them at the Charlotte Roval Turtles or something like that? Did they put those...
in go kart. Was it at Englishtown Raceway Park? They have the turtles for some of the curves, and I actually saw one get ripped up and spear a guy's cart.
All right, maybe the turtles are a bad idea. Maybe we'll go with the old rumble strips down there on the bottom.
I would rather see that than the turtles because if you break that off, it's basically like a mushroom, like they were
right. It's got a spike on it.
Yeah, and it broke up and it rose up and the guy caught the edge of it with his cart and it bent the chassis. So yeah, so that's why I'd rather stick with a rumble strip where. If you hook it, it's not the end of the world, and you won't throw, a bunch of crud up on the track. But,
Yeah, I think Evergreen's fine the way they are. It wasn't a problem, and unless it becomes a problem, then we can address that later. But right now, I'm glad they got rid of that white line rule through the corners, and they can go down low, and the racing was really good. The modified feature had a long stretch of green flag laps, and I think a lot of people were shocked because of that. My brother was spotting for the race. On a couple of restarts, it did take him a while to get him doubled up. Tim, I know you had a little complaint about the way things were getting handled like that. Would you want to explain what was going on there?
To me, it was inconsistent. Most of the tracks that we go to, you double up, you take another lap around, and then just one to go at the line. It was inconsistent. There was a couple times where we're going down the backstretch and they're shutting the lights off to go green right then and there.
Yeah, I kind of like that though. I figured everybody was lined up. They were where they were supposed to be. We can get it right Let's do it this time.
There was one time they were so confused they were driving around there like 80 miles an hour into the yellow because half the people didn't know what was going on.
I think where the confusion came on that one, Tim, was it was starting to drizzle, and I think the track was not sure if they wanted to throw the green flag yet or not, because if the track was getting to the point where they were starting to lose it a little bit, and I think they were afraid to go green. And I did notice they were asking the modified drivers to give them the thumbs up or the thumbs down if the track was good. Larry, do you know anything about that?
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's what it was, Scott. And to back to what you were saying, Tim, about inconsistent a little bit. Sunday was, I keep saying yesterday, I don't even know what day it is. But that was the second time the new race director, Tom Vitale, that was the second race he ever race directed in his entire life. He comes from he used to work with Jim Lamoureux when he was running the late models. He was with Jim when he was running the ARCA car with James Hilton when 20 years ago when he was running ARCA and stuff. So he's been around racing a long time. This year they called him. They said, they needed a race director. The guy last year was that Eric Coker who runs at Mahoning Valley with a street stock. He was hands off. He's like, I tried the race direct thing. It's not for me. So they called this Tommy guy who, like I said, has been around racing. I've known him my entire life. So probably 30, 35 years. And Sunday was the first time he ever race directed for a show like that, modifieds and that many people. That'd be a little
intimidating for him because it was a hell of a modified show. He had to take control of,
Big names.
A simple way to fix that is the pace car go back out there for every yellow.
Yeah, that'd probably be a good idea.
Because then when the light's out on the pace car, you're going green.
And then when the pace car pulls off, you're going green because the pace car can actually pull off on the back straightaway in that chicane.
Josh will clearly come up there and drive the pace car every Sunday.
Oh yeah,
right?
No, that I get flashy lights. I'm set. No,
but I think the reason why sometimes they decided on the back straightaway to go green is because they were lined up and they could get a green out of it to try to get this show going quicker, And then that one time when they were riding around and they were picking up speed, they were trying to figure out if the track was wet.
Well, that's all fine and dandy, but when you're coming through turn 2 and Jimmy Bluewood's screaming on the radio, "Are we going? Are we going? What are we doing? Are you there?" I'm like, "You're not saying anything, Jimmy. You're not saying anything."
Yeah.
These guys are programmed to know at the line.
Right.
Well, I'm going to say that I think, in a way, that's a positive thing. And I say that because you talk about how dominant the inside line is there. And the leader's obviously going to pick that. But now it actually can even things out because if it throws the leader off his game just a little bit, it can kind of help even out whoever's starting on the outside of him. And I think
tell you what,
Josh,
you are right. Of course, the inside lane is an advantage there at Evergreen. But I tell you what, on the restarts, not only in the modified division, but the sport mods and the street stocks, I tell you, the outside row was getting a good jump on.
There's definitely an outside lane there. You could definitely race.
Like you said, Scott, once they got rid of that white line rule, that really helped because, like you said, the outside lane isn't 2 foot from the wall like it was last year and a years prior when they had that rule. The outside line's more of an outside line now rather than running up in the third groove.
All right, so the modified race went 75 laps, and there was a few bumps and spins and bangs like that. Unfortunately, with a couple laps to go, Anthony Sensley got loose and spun out. A lot of people blame that on Jimmy, but I talked to Jimmy, and he talked to Anthony, and Anthony said he was so loose, he knew if someone just tapped him, he was going to spin, and he was actually pretty sideways before Jimmy got to him, and Jimmy just kind of had to finish him off a little bit. And, Jimmy didn't get sent to the back or anything like that, but it was just a shame because there's only a handful of laps left. And Anthony Sesley had a real good run. It was the best run I've seen him have in a while.
And he started in the back too, I want to say. He started 15th or something, I believe.
Yeah, he was another up there, one with a wall modified up there, without the Tour type engine in it and oil system and stuff like that.
He was in
with Don Fatarusa. It seems to work good up there. I mean, I remember even back in the day, People like Ken Wool used to go up there with 2-barrel modifieds, just throw a 4-barrel on it and you can run there. It's not, I mean, you need a good motor at Evergreen, but if you have a super big motor, you can kind of overpower that track and just spin your tires. And then with a 75 lap race, when you're trying to save tires anyway, the less horsepower motor seems to run pretty good up there. You still there, Larry?
Oh, yep. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. No, for sure. Like you said, it's not, you definitely need more motor than you need at Mahoning or a place like that, but like, you don't need a ton. Handling, it seems to me, you want, obviously you always want a perfect balance of power to handling, but it seems like even in this, and especially in the street stocks too, if you get the car to turn through the center of the corner, you're going to be okay.
I mean, motor is always a good thing. Don't get me wrong. You know, you don't have to work as hard when you have a lot of motor. But yeah, you go up there with a wall mod and run just fine with the Tour type modifieds up there, and it was a good race. But once again, Matt Hirschman he is just so good. You can watch him, and it just kind of reminds me of David Pearson back in the day. Like 3/4 of the race goes by, you don't even see him. Like he's just laying around in the back, and then before you know it, he's passing for the lead. It's just like he's amazing. He really does a great job. Never puts a scratch on the car. Never dumps nobody other than Eric Peters at Mahoney Valley the other week. But he just put on a clinic again and won the race. He did get challenged by Zane Ziner late in the race, and that was the only good thing about the Anthony Sesley spin. It brought out a yellow, and it gave Zane Ziner a good chance of beating Matt Hirschman, but he wasn't able to get it done. It didn't make for the last 5 laps to be real exciting because it also put Jimmy up there up like 4th. And it was a good little race there at the end. It was very exciting. Josh, you got the top 10 for that race?
Which was that the modified?
Yeah, Tour type.
Tour type. Okay, hang on. So Matt Hirschman with the win.
$3,000 too. And it's not a bad payday for a 75 lap race.
No, that's not at all. Zane Ziner in second. Austin Beers third. 4th was Jimmy Blewett. 5th was Jack Eli. 6th was Earl Pauls. 7th was Roger Koss, followed by Tom Silk, Chris Turbush, and Jonathan Mandato.
I tell you what, Roger Koss had a good race too, because where did he finish, Josh?
7th.
7th. He got to go through the Consi. He was one of the last cars to qualify through the Consi, so he had to start at the back of the field. And for him to get a 7th place finish, that's a real good run for him.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, he was the last car. It was between him and Sones, who was the last car to make it in through the Consi. So yeah, he had to start dead last. And that was surprising too, because every time Roger Koss is up there, he's always challenging Hirschman. Top 5 almost every time out when it's a normal modified race. So that was we were talking about Brian DeFebo struggling. It was a surprise early on in the day too, to see Roger Koss was just a little off.
Well,
yeah, it was a great racing. What's the next race in line there, Josh? I forget what came out after the modified race.
Well, on the list here is the Evergreen modifieds, then the street stocks, and the 4-cylinders.
Yeah,
I think the 4-cylinders were before that, right? The 4-cylinders
were after the big mods.
Yeah, and there was a lot of them. How many 4-cylinders were there, Josh?
20 with 2 did not start.
So they had 22.
Yep.
It was a great race. They had a full field of 20, which should have been 22, but we won't talk about that. But I tell you what, we did have some kids that moved up from the junior race and raced with the adults in the regular division. They ran very well. I'm talking about Paulie Hartwig III and Scott Adams' son. They were running very well, and it's a shame what happened to them. The very last lap coming out of 2, they kind of got like bottled up a little bit. They were trying to make a pass, and it was like one of those chain reaction wrecks, and Paulie got sideways, and I'm pretty sure it was Scott Adams' son that T-boned him, and they did quite a bit of damage on Scott Adams' son's car. It was just a shame because it was the last lap, and they had a great race going.
I think I saw a good photo of like that wreck happening, and I think Hartwig said that it was like 3 wide coming off the turn, and it was a racing.
They ran out of room.
Yeah, literally. You try to do as much as you can, but occasionally it just doesn't work. And Micah got sideways and down into the side of Paulie's car, which, Paulie's doing a great job. I mean, well, if you look at the results, that puts Paulie in 12th, Micah in 13th.
Yeah, but they were running
4th and 5th.
Yeah, they were up there.
Yeah. What happened was My teammate was in fourth. That guy, that Ray Cochin, who finished fourth there in that 01 car.
Yep.
Paulie tried to shoot the gap. I mean, he might have left half a lane there. Paulie kind of threw it in there, got into the left rear of Cochin, so Paulie had to lift, not to send him all the way through. And then the 07 Zeb Farber just completely just barreled it in there. Might have never lifted. Got into the left rear of Paulie, which hooked him sideways. Micah was on his outside with nowhere to go, coming out of two, wide open, and the three of them just kind of got sucked into the wall. And, yeah, Micah hit it.
Looking at the pictures of Micah's car afterwards, that was a significant hit. I mean, he's okay as from everything I've heard and seen. He was doing fine, thankfully. That was the big part of that. The car, I'm sure, will get fixed sooner or later, and I'm sure he'll be back out there. But I mean, like you said, like if they're up fourth, fifth, I mean, they're showing that they're true racers. I did see Mackenzie finished 17th. I don't know if that was where she was running prior to that, or
her car blew up in practice or maybe it was a heat race. It blew up 2 weeks ago. They got a new old motor in it. Bought a parts car for somebody, put the motor in it this week, and it blew up again. So
Scott Adams left there with one total race car and one car with a blown up motor. He a little bit of a tough weekend up there.
Only his street stock finished. The 4 cylinders didn't. Kenzie's car blew up, and then she had to take out the 27, which was actually the car that I won the championship in the Enduros with.
Yeah, that's like an Escort or something, right?
Yeah, it's an Escort ZX2, and it's got, I mean, the car has a million laps on it, and she's.
I got a question for you. You race those cars, all the time. How much is it to get a motor? A motor blows up. Everybody laughs how the motor blew up. How much does it cost for you to get another one out of the junkyard and get it race ready?
Really, it just depends on what it is. I mean, a lot of those guys run like Cavaliers and stuff. I mean, you know how many Cavaliers are out there. Yeah. They're pretty easy to get. Like Mackenzie, her car that blew up the last 2 weeks, it's a 1990 Toyota Celica. So there's not many left. It's almost like, I mean, junkyards, they almost don't exist in the junkyards anymore. So
right.
Scott had to put some legwork, he said, just to find.
Scott Adams told us when we interviewed his family at the Motorsports Show that he sits on Facebook Marketplace all day long, and if he ever sees those cars within like 100 miles of his house, he just buys them and goes and gets them.
Now, we know somebody does that with factory stock.
Yeah, geometric cars. I'm saying what metric cars. So he says he's a big Facebook Marketplace looking for cars like that. He said John definitely helps him find parts for those older cars. Another name I follow.
What's that geometric car I want to build, Scott?
What's that?
What's that geometric car that I want to build? I want you to build.
The old Saloon or whatever they call it, the whaleback ones.
You ever see one of those, Larry Spencer? Let us know.
I have one, but it's wrecked pretty bad in the back.
Yeah, that doesn't do any good.
Another name I follow in the 4-cylinder division is Rebecca Barbush. Am I saying her name right, Larry?
Yeah, I could tell you whatever you want to know about Rebecca. I could give you the 411 on that. Here's
the reason why I follow Rebecca.
Okay.
Oh man, I don't even know what year it was, but a long, long time ago in the Arch Truck Series, I won 100 lapper there. And I was presented a trophy by a very young girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, and it was Rebecca. So I have a picture in Victory Lane of her as like Miss Little Evergreen or something like that, giving me a trophy. So I found out that she was racing through. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she's married to Tony Hilliard, right?
Yep. Tony. Yep, my best friend. He engaged. They have a daughter together who's only 6 weeks younger than my son. So all my stuff, I run out of his garage. I run out of their house. All my stuff is up there, truck, trailer, all my piece of junk cars that don't have cages in it. Any project I have no room at my house. They're up Tony's house. So yeah, she's engaged to Tony, and she started in go-karts, years ago, won a whole bunch of go-kart races. And this is her third year in the 4 cylinders, but you can't count last year because she had the baby. And she actually won her first race 6 weeks after having her daughter, and she got DQ'd afterwards.
Yeah, for like a camber volley, right?
quarter of an inch too much camber post race, which I never heard of.
I mean,
camber. And
we hate those camber rules down here at Walsingham too. We have that strict 7-degree camber rule. And you're right. It should be checked before the race. So much can happen during the race. You know what I'm saying? And I can sit in my garage and try to get that 7 degrees of camber in the car, and it'll fight me all. I can measure it 3 different times, 3 different ways, and get 3 different readings. I can roll the car back and forth, and it'll read something again. It's such a touchy thing to measure. You know what I'm saying? Even when I'm trying to set it for myself, I just get it close. You know what I'm saying? Like, you'll never get it perfect. You know.
Yeah, and you know how that is too. Your stuff and the track stuff could be totally different. What they tell you, what yours says. But we were talking about my family lineage in the past. All 3 of her uncles. Her dad won the street stock championship there in 2010. Her 2 uncles ran street stocks. Her dad ran a late model, and her grandfather used to run there when my great grandfather was a promoter. So I've known them again, my entire life. So she comes from a rich history at the track of third.
I drive the old way into the racetrack. I actually make the right at that one gas station in the Evans Roadhouse. I make the right in there, and I pass a big sign that says Barbush Automotive. Is that the same people?
Yes, that's her. That's where that's where all of them. That's where all the uncles live. That's where they race. When they race out of. They actually had a go-kart track, family-owned go-kart track that all their buddies used to come over probably late 70s, early 80s. All the guys from Evergreen, if Evergreen would run Saturdays back then, they would all go over there on a Sunday afternoon. They'd have 20 go-karts in the field messing around. All the guys that you'd beat on Saturday night would be there Sunday afternoon with their go-karts. So close to the track.
Through the magic of Facebook, I didn't even realize it. My wife Nancy caught on to it, and we have that picture. I have it on a wall. Is it on the wall right over there? It might be on the wall right over there. We have that picture here, and through the magic of Facebook, she put up pictures when she was a kid. And she put a picture of me up in Victory Lane, and she was the little girl standing there giving me the trophy. And I thought that was so cool. So when we went up there, I wanted to watch her race because I know she's been racing. And she had a great comeback. She spun early in the race, and she didn't give up. She went to the rear of the field, started, and she actually moved herself back up pretty well in the race. Where did she finish at, Josh?
Sixth.
Sixth. Yeah, she had a great run. It was cool watching her. It's a little red car she drives. I don't know much about the 4-cylinders. You know what kind of car that is?
Yeah, it's a Toyota Celica. It's actually an automatic. She's one of the only cars that runs an automatic.
Huh.
Yeah, and she's very, very smooth. She's, consistently, she laid down quick laps. I think last week she was the fastest car out there, like lap time wise. Not on Sunday's feature, but opening day, and it's unbelievable how smooth and consistent she is.
Well, that's a key. It definitely is. I know that I've been plenty herky-jerky, but mine also drives like a boat, so.
Believe me, I've been there.
Oh, there you are, Scott.
Do my very best to show you guys this picture. It's been hanging on the wall a long time. Are you guys there?
Yeah, we're still.
Yeah, we hear you, Scott.
All right, sorry. I just got up for a second because I do have the picture of Rebecca on my wall, and I just want to take it down and show it. I'm going to try my best to show it to you guys and just show you how young she was here, and this is why I like watching her race. This is the picture, if you guys can see it.
Oh, yeah, I see her there.
See her
there? Yep.
She's the little girl on the green.
And what year was that, Scott? Do you know roughly?
I don't know. That was like one of the first years I raced. Probably 2002, if I had to guess, or 2001.
Yeah, that would make sense. She was about 5 or 6 then. So that would make sense then. That would you're right in the wheelhouse.
Wow.
So that's exactly why I watch Rebecca. And she plus when I go to racetracks, I watch a lot of the female racers because my wife Nancy races, so we do like to watch the girls race, and she did very well. There was a lot of girls racing up there through the other divisions too. The 4-cylinders and the juniors and stuff like that. It's good to see that there's a lot of female drivers up there as well.
Young ones too. Rebecca's almost the old guard. She's only 22.
Yeah, year one. All right, Josh. So that's that division. Did we do the top 10 on that division?
What, the 4-cylinders?
Yeah.
All right. No, we did not get to that yet. So, Dan Cascioli.
Okay.
Yep,
Cascioli.
gets the win. Harry Neal in second. Jay Canor, Ray Cochin, Nate. Oh, geez. I'm sorry. This is also in like the smallest text possible on the website. Nate Marcico, Rebecca Barbush, Steve Kreitzer, Frank,
Kreitzer,
Frank Hughes, Zeb Farber, Kyle Troke, and that's your top 10 there. Yep.
I tell you what, that the two that were battling for the win, that was a good race. They were really going at it pretty good. And is it Harry O'Neill or Harry?
Harry Neal.
Yep.
Or O'Neill, yes.
Harry O'Neill. Harry O'Neill, yep.
I tell you what, he tried everything, and he was being brave about it. He was trying to pass for the win on the outside, and he was going for it. He was running real well. I recognize that name from the Enduros, right, Larry? He wins a lot of the Enduros up there, doesn't he?
Yeah, yep. He ran. He forced. Yeah, in the Enduros, in the hobby stocks, and he had that 6-cylinder Pontiac G6 that he ran against you a couple times. I think with that big spray paint number 126 on it. But Danny Cassioli,
I think he T-boned somebody real bad in one of the snow races. like drove like from the infield straight across the track and like T-boned. It looked bad.
But Danny Cassioli, who won, Scott, you might have to dig deep and remember he used to run years ago, 15 years ago up there with a street stock and late model and stuff. He's been around a long.
I knew that name sounded familiar.
Yeah, he's been around a long time. Like I said, mainly street stocks and a late models, probably like 2005, 2006, right in that range there. So he's been around a long time and recently got back into it, running enduros, and now built this Acura that he runs with the hobby stocks. And the thing is it's a rocket. Well, yeah, you've seen it on Sunday. The thing's a rocket ship. Yeah.
Another name I recognize in there too is Frank Hughes. He raced many divisions up there too, didn't he?
That's his dad, Frank Hughes, same name. He ran late models there forever. From when you were probably from the time that you showed the picture of the truck here 2 minutes ago.
Yeah,
that long.
Up there.
Yeah. They've been running up there forever. The family. They had a brother, Justin, who won a couple features a couple years ago in the 4-cylinders as well.
I tell you what, Evergreen's just like every other racetrack. It's like Wall Stadium. It's like Riverhead. It's the families that keep it going. I mean, there's the racing families. The names just keep continuing to keep racing. You know, it's the same at every track. You have your hardcore group of families that just been there since day one. And when the one guy gets too old, his kid gets in it. When that kid gets too old, the grandkid gets in it. It just keeps going and going and going. Another name that pops up that way is the Verways. Is we had Bill Verways race down at Wall Stadium for many years, and then they moved up there by Mountain, and they got Sean Verways racing up there now. It's just the families that keep it really, really going. I know we have great guys like Jason that step in to promote the track and keep it open, but without these families that are willing to grind it out in the garage every night and spend every extra money they have to keep racing, that's what really keeps racing going at all these racetracks.
For sure.
I wanted to ask Mike Lavery. I know he ran some of the enduro races with the 4-cylinders, and he's been running with the 4-cylinders down at Wall.
Yeah, he wasn't up there.
Yeah, I was. Is he normally in the 4-cylinders, or is he more of an enduro guy?
I used to see him up there with the enduros. I never seen him race the 4-cylinders up there.
Yeah,
okay.
Usually the enduros.
Okay, I was just curious. I mean, I met him once or twice, up with running in the snow and all that, and I was just curious because, I mean, I remember when he started coming down to Wall, I was like, man, that's got to be a hell of a trip for him to be making every week. But he's doing it, so more power to him. But anyway.
All right, what's our next division, Josh?
So we had the Evergreen.
Sport mods rolled out next. The Evergreen mods.
Yeah, the Evergreen modifieds. So I'll go with the top 10 real quick. That was Bobby Jones, Paul Hartwig Jr., Neil Rutt III. That name sounds familiar. Sean Verwees, Carson G. Giant Tommaso, Brian. Oh, geez, I'm going to butcher this. Rogalski.
Yep, that spot on. That was
all right. Stephen Coleman, Travis Spalding, Gunnar Ziner, and Earl Pauls are your top 10.
I tell you what, man, it was great to see that many Evergreen modifieds. I know they've been having trouble getting getting
It was a
cars
great
out
race.
with the regular tour mods. A lot of people just moved up to the bigger mods. It's good to see that the Evergreen mods are picking up car count up there. And, of course, one of the things that helped was Wall wasn't racing, so you did get some of our Wall crate modified guys up there. They also have a crate division now at Mahoney Valley, so I'm sure a few of those guys came over and raced the Evergreen mods. A lot of the cars were crate motors with 4 barrels. I think Paul had a built motor with a 2-barrel, or he might even had a 4-barrel too. I wasn't really sure what he was running, but he had a little bit more motor than some of those guys. It was a great race, though, and it was cool that you guys gave them 35 laps. Do they usually get 35 laps, Larry, or did you guys give them a little something special for this weekend?
Yeah, they're usually 30 or 35. They weren't even going to be on the card originally. They weren't supposed to be on the schedule. It was supposed to be the big, because Sunday was the first time in probably 5 years that the big mods and the B mods, Evergreen mods, were on the same card. But enough of the guys were like, we haven't raced all year, and so we want to get out there. And they like you said, they certainly came out in droves. 15 of them. That was the biggest non-king of the green field for the Evergreen mods I remember in a long time.
Good.
It was a great race. I mean, Paul ran really good. He did have to chase the one guy down, then eventually winning. My brother was spotting for Michael Rising in the 03, and Michael was having a great run too, and my brother was doing a great job spotting for him. Unfortunately, there was a bad wreck on the back straightaway involving the 41 of
Nick Bear.
Todd Bear, right? It's Todd's son.
Yep, yeah, his son Nick
Bear. I'm not sure how it happened, but he hit the wall a ton, destroying the race car, which I hate to see because I know modifieds are very, very expensive, and these families are on tight budgets, especially with the COVID stuff going around. And my brother's driver, Michael, got clipped in that wreck as well, and he did a little damage to his car as well. Tim, what did you see when you were spotting that incident?
I told him, as quick as I could to get down. He tried to get down. He got down enough where he almost cleared him. He just clipped him with the right front tire.
Did the 41 come spinning off the wall and get him, or he just didn't get low enough?
I just saw, the car in front of him get upset. I said, go, as soon as you see a car do that, you just say, go low, go low. And as I was saying it, he was trying to, and he just clipped him with the right front. So,
Tim, that's about as mild as you could put that accident that the guy's car got upset because that car was pretty much destroyed. I haven't seen him.
I mean, as he's going into the wall.
Yeah.
It
was pretty bad. The right front was ripped right off it. The rear was ripped right out of it. It was to the point, Josh, where the car was basically sitting on the chassis rails and all 4 wheels were up off the ground. It was a shame.
Yeah.
I mean, the right rear tire.
I think a lot of that was from the impact into the wall, right?
Right.
Tim, if you don't mind, I know that you've spotted for Neil Rutt in the past, and more drivers than I could probably shake a stick at. However, how did this come about that you ended up for?
Why did you spot for Michael Rising and not Neil Rutt the third that you normally spot at Wall Stadium?
Who Jimmy Bullitt paid me to?
Good answer.
All right.
Sounds like Jimmy Bullock got a 2-for-1 deal. Tim, I'll pay you to spot for me, but you got a spot for Michael Rising too while you're up here.
It definitely wasn't a 2-for-1 on his end.
How's the bragging camp going?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think Bear's car was pretty more up. The right rear tire was about 2 foot off the ground when it was all said and done, and they had to use a flatbed to pull the car off the track.
I don't like hearing that.
All said and done, those guys raced a good race all day long. I hate when something like that happens later on in the race, for everybody. Neil Rutt did a hell of a job. It took him about, probably like 10 laps to get used to the car, I guess. And he just took off.
Yeah, because I even noticed that in Neil's heat race, he had some couple little problems in his heat race, getting loose and spinning out and stuff like that. But yeah, he really did get it figured out towards halfway of that Evergreen modified racing. The second half of the race, he ran very well.
Yeah, Neil had a tough week last week with the 4-cylinder and the factory stock. I don't think he finished either one of those races last week at the track. So it was good to see that at least his luck came in the big car,
I tell you what, that's a beautiful car. I really like the paint scheme on that car. They keep it really clean. It's shined up really nice. They put a lot of effort in that car in its appearance too. You know, it looks really nice. And it was good to see Neil have a good weekend up there, like you said, because he had a tough weekend the weekend before. He actually won his factory stock heat race, but then the rest of the day kind of went downhill on him up there.
Yeah, besides for Bobby Jones and Hartwig, he was definitely the third best car. Like, it wasn't like those guys were out front battling. You know, they were pretty well, like you guys seen, they were pretty well in front of the rest of the pack. But I mean, Neil was definitely the third best car there for sure.
Okay, and after the sport mod race, that's when I decided to pack it in and head for the parking lot and take the 3-hour ride home. Ted and Larry Spencer talked me up on my walk out, talking about my Enduro championships, and he did mention the RPM podcast. He did give us a nice plug up there for the RPM podcast. We thank you for that, Larry. So I left after that race. So Larry's going to have to help us out with the next race because I'm not sure what happened after that.
Yeah, the street stock was the final division on the card, and Brock Brown, who we were talking a little family history before. Brock Brown's one of my cousins too. He just wasn't lucky enough to get the Spencer last name, but he is a Spencer. I want to say his grandmother was somewhere along the line a sister of somebody to where she was born a Spencer. So he ended up winning the race. But I mean, again, like you said, just a great race the entire way through. There was a pretty good field of street stocks too. There was
some nice street stocks too. Those street stocks are getting pretty fancy up that way.
I'm showing 18 here, and I had to hold back pretty hard on a Pennsyltucky joke.
But yeah, anyway, the street stock race, Jason Harmon, he led the majority of the race early on, and then textbook, by the book, bump and run with probably 5 to go. Brock Brown used on him and got around him, and he just kind of drove away from there. Brock's that street stock he has is the cream of the crop when it comes to the street stock division at the track. He won the majority of the races last year, and that Jason Harmon, he was doing a great job in his Monte Carlo, holding him off. He started up front, and he was Brock started, I want to say, mid-pack or so. So he had to battle his way up through it a little bit. But yeah, it was a real 18 is a really good count for the street stocks.
I got dumped.
So I'll give the top 10 real quick. As you mentioned, Brock Brown getting the win, Jason Harmon in second, Johnny Bennett, Mikey Polak, Dan Paulwicki, Scott Adams, Jay Gould. I'm going to ask Scott about that in a minute. Brandon Chrisman, Brian Hajeki, or Hayeki. I can't tell if that's a J or an I. It's so small. Halicki. All right. And Steve Tito. Now, Scott, real quick. Jay Gould, related to the Goulds?
Not that I know. Not the Goulds we know, like Phil Gould.
Okay.
Christmas Truck Series crew chief. Not that I know.
Just figured I'd throw it out there.
He's from up here, Jake Gould. He's raced years. He's another guy that started in the Enduros back in the Neats days. And this is the first year. He's actually getting help by, do you know who Joe Polney is, Scott?
No.
He used to, he owned and prepared a 58 late model for years up there. Earl Paulus ran it. Barry Gomer ran it. It was always winning probably 10, 15 years ago in the late model class. He had two, Justin Onderko won the championship with it 2010, 2011. So he's helping out Jay Gould this year, and this is his first effort in the street stocks. And It's really nice. It's a Camaro. It's a really nice piece, and he's got some good people helping him behind it.
Yeah, it was nice to see Steve Tito get a top 10 too. I know he's an underfunded guy trying to race in the very ultra competitive street stock division. It was nice to see him get a top 10 too. All right, Larry, that pretty much wraps up what happened up there Sunday. Do you know what the next event at Evergreen is? Would you like to plug that?
Yeah, they're off this weekend for the 4th of July weekend coming up. And
I'm looking around because, I always look around to try to find a race to go to 4th of July weekend, and everybody's closed. I think so much other than New Egypt. I mean, New Egypt's racing, Bridgeport's racing, but the asphalt tracks in the area are closed. Bethel Speedway's closed. Evergreen's closed. I don't even think Mahoney Valley has anything going on this weekend.
Modified Tours racing.
What's that?
The Tours racing.
Yeah, that's way up in New Hampshire. That's damn near
Mm.
Canada.
Well,
Yeah, I was surprised to see that all the
You drive
trucks.
up there to race in the snow, but you won't go up there and watch a tour race?
No, I will. I'm just saying, in our area, there's no asphalt
Yeah.
tracks racing. I thought it would have been a good weekend to Evergreen to have a big race, but they just had a big race. All right, so when is the next race then, Larry?
They're off for the 12th as well. They're having one of those drift events. Like I said, it's a big 3-day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They'll probably have 200 drifters up there for that. So the next race is the weekend of the 19th. The 19th is the next race. And it's another big mod race again. It's another tour mod race.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know if the Evergreen mods or the street stocks or who else is going to be on the card there?
I'm pretty sure the Evergreen mods are off. I think that the street stocks will be there that day.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I know it's definitely a big mod race because Teddy and I were talking about it last night. It's like, hey, good job on the big mod race last night. Get ready because in a couple of weeks we're doing it again.
Yeah. Real quick, have you ever been there when the drift cars are there?
No, I never have. I've seen plenty of video and pictures, and
So
it
I was
looks.
wondering if they used, because you said they use part of the pits as part of their course. Then where do they set up pits at? Do they set them up out in the parking lot?
Yeah, out in the parking lot and more like on the dirt side of the pits, like that side area there where it's all dirt. Like the paved pit area is where they use the course too. Mainly the back of the paved pit area. So when they come flying around the corner, they're like where you'd be coming onto the track in a turn 2, and then like that's where they, go from the pits onto the track in their full racing basically.
Wow.
I think it's great that Evergreen Raceway and the drift join together because it really helps, like you said, financially the track make it work. I think all these racetracks need another avenue to make money other than the race fans and the race teams because they're already getting us so many times a year and we can only afford to go so many times a year. So for them to bring in a whole new crowd of people, a whole new funnel of cash is great. I mean, back in the day when Kevin Ayers ran New Egypt Speedway, he said the thing that kept him afloat was he had go-karts on Sundays. So the go-kart racing on Sunday helped pay for like the modified racing on Friday nights, And I think by them teaming up with the drift show people, I think it really helps it as a business, and I think a lot of like guys like me and Josh, we can make fun of those drift guys all we want because I really don't understand that type of racing and I don't really particularly care for it. It's not even racing; it's like a judged event. But if it helps,
yeah, me too. I'm not drift guy either. So you keep going.
I don't even like the styles of cars when these kids call me to tow their cars like that, and they're sitting so low and the wheels are tipped out, and they expect me to tow it because they broke a ball joint because they have these big stupid tires on their cars. I don't even like towing their cars. But if their income comes into the track and helps the oval track side stay open, I think it's a great match. You know what I'm saying? I think it's a great thing.
Absolutely. It certainly doesn't hurt the place to have that income, have that promotion too. I mean, because like I said, you get 200 or so, 150 of those drift guys in there. They bring crew members. They
might come on a Sunday and watch Evergreen regular racing and build a 4-cylinder car or something, or come to one of our Enduros and see a 4-cylinder and say, hey, man, we got that one junkie car that's not quite good enough to be a drift car, but we can make it into an Enduro car.
I was just going to go that route, Scott. I mean, they might have a car that they wanted to be a drift car of some sort, and that's going to cost too much. It's going to be way more affordable to get into a 4-cylinder division and at least do some type of racing. And doing it at a track as opposed to all that garbage, illegal street racing.
And another thing too, I was a little disappointed at the beginning of the year because of the COVID, and Evergreen wasn't able to start like all the other racetracks. They did have another 8-cylinder Enduro planned in the beginning of the year, and they did open it up to the Outlaw Enduro Series rules, which my car is, and I think that's a good move to get Enduro racing back up and running up there too, is to open the rules up for the Outlaw Enduro Series rules. I never understand why Evergreen didn't run outdoor Enduro Series rules because, I mean, we race at Grandview, we get 25 8-cylinders down there, so, let's race them up at Evergreen too, and they finally did open it up for us, so when they do have an 8-cylinder race up there, I'm going to be able to come up there and race again.
Actually, it's you mentioned that, Scott. Now, I mean, other than my current health issues like the back surgery and stuff like that, when I can get myself in a better position financially, I am looking to do more enduro stuff and get back to racing in some form where I can actually, remotely afford it. And that would be another. I've been out to Evergreen a couple times,
Yeah,
and I would
it's a
gladly.
great enduro track. It's a perfect enduro track. It really is.
It
yeah.
is. It is. And now, granted, I did it in the snow, but I'll do it in the dry. That's fine.
Yeah.
I got no problem.
All right, Larry. Before we let you go, we just wanted to ask you a question. Now we know you're back announcing. Do you have any racing plans this year? Do you plan on doing any enduros or street stock racing or anything like that?
Uh-oh.
We lose him?
Uh-oh.
Says he's there. Larry.
Our enduro talk made him fall asleep.
I guess his phone. I guess his phone died on us. All right, Josh. Let's take a break. Let's just take a quick break, and then we'll do Bridgeport when we get back. We want to thank Larry Spencer for coming on. Unfortunately, we lost him, but we were pretty much done with him anyway, so that's fine. All right. All right, guys. Let's take a break, and we'll do Bridgeport when we come back from the break.
Okay.
Hey everybody, this is Sam Ballard from the RPM Podcast. Planning an event and looking for a great time? Go no further than RC2U Racing for all your portable family entertainment. RC2U turns any occasion into a competition. Check them out online at rc2uracing.com.
And here we are again for part 2 of the episode of the RPM Podcast. It's now 9:36 p.m. We're just going to do some quick talk about Wall Stadium a little bit. We're going to talk about Bridgeport. We just want to thank Larry Spencer for coming on. That was great. He did a great job keeping us informed with the names and what was going on up at Evergreen. He answered every question we have. I just messaged, unfortunately at the end, he lost internet connection, so we lost him right at the end, but we were pretty much done for that segment anyway. But we're going to have him back on. He's got some great stories to tell about his family because he is from the famous Spencer family up there in Berwick, Pennsylvania. He knows a lot of history about racetracks that are open up that way, racetracks that are closed up that way. He's been around it forever, just like me and Tim and Josh. So we'll definitely have Larry back on. He's basically going to be our connection for now with Evergreen Speedway because he's going to be there every week working anyway.
Between him and Ted Groh, we're going to be.
Yeah, we'll either have Larry on or Ted Groh on. They both do a great job with us. We've had Ted Groh on many times. We even had Ted Groh on live with us when we did the motorsports show. Ted's very knowledgeable with the racing up in Pennsylvania as well. So it's a great friendship we got going with them to help us keep us informed with all the racing up there. And without Wall Racing right now, it's great to have them with us on the show, and they're going to be a great addition to us. Plus, Larry knows a lot about NASCAR racing. Even when we get back to talking about NASCAR, we're just not doing it this week because we've been off the last few weeks. It would just be way too much to catch up on. And because Evergreen had a great race weekend up there, we want to talk more about that than the racing at Pocono. But next week we'll talk more about NASCAR because a lot of the local tracks are off. So we'll talk about NASCAR. Maybe we'll even have Larry come on and talk about NASCAR as well. But yeah, Wall Stadium did open up a little bit. A couple weeks ago, they had tech and tires. You can bring your car up there and get them teched and safety checked and buy your tires and get ready that way. Last week, they had an open practice, but not many cars showed up, and people were a little concerned about that. But I was just explaining to Josh, the reason why there wasn't that many cars was there is because of the COVID stuff. They had to do the whole social distancing thing. So what Diane did was she only allowed car numbers 0 through 31 participate on this one. So, if in my situation, I have a car that's a number 09 and a car that's an 89. So I don't know how that would have worked. I decided not to go to practice only because my cars are pretty much ready to go. I mean, we raced Turkey Derby with them. I just want to over them, fix a few little things on them. They're pretty much race ready. And without an actual race date in sight, I didn't see any reason for me and Nancy to go over there and practice. We've been racing a little bit with our Enduro cars. So I just didn't see a real good sense. Don't get me wrong. Now, if they announce, I think their last practice is July 18th. And say for like July 25th or something like that, they schedule a race. Then we'll go there July 18th and practice, make sure the cars are ready. But without a definite solid date for a race, I just didn't feel there was a real reason for me and Nancy to go over there and practice.
Like you say, if you've been doing the enduro racing a bit, I mean, you're kind of feeding your racing.
Feeding my habit of racing. I did, me and Nancy, before we went on vacation, we did race up at Big Diamond Speedway in an Enduro. I finished 5th. She finished 7th out of 15.
Wow.
It was a 50 lapper. So we had a nice little race. I broke a shock and I broke a brake line. So I was a wounded duck there at the end of that race.
Actually, can we talk about that, Scott? Because you sent us a picture of that broken brake line, and I've never seen a failure in a brake line like that.
Broke inside the nut, the flare nut that goes into the master cylinder. It broke inside there. I've never seen one break in there either. You know what it looked like, Josh? It looked like when I flared it, the tool itself cut into it. You know, when you pull, where the flare tool grabs it, it looks like I got it real thin and it broke there because it was like a perfect circle around there. Like there was almost like a tubing cutter went around it, but it was only on one side. And when I reflared it to fix it, I noticed that my tool was grabbing again. So I used a different tool and then it didn't crush into the brake line like that. So I think it was, and I flared that a long time ago. So it's probably got 5 or 6 enduros on it, so it finally broke. I think I weakened the line when I flared it with the flare tool. I think that's why it broke there. But yeah, the end of that race, I had a broken shock and the car was super loose and I had no brakes. So I was kind of a wounded duck there, but I cruised around and still finished 5th. Nancy finished 7th. It was still a fun race. I got 50 laps of racing in when there's not much racing going on. Up and coming, I have July 10th. I'm racing Grandview. They're having a 50 lapper. A held over rain out race from last year that I can enter and start in the back, and they have a 75 lapper. So I got 125 laps of racing there. Then July 12th, I'm going to an open competition in Doro at Bethel Speedway, which is a 50 lapper. So yeah, we got racing going on. Me and Nancy got racing going on. So we just decided not to go over there and practice. Not saying, it's great people are going over there, but that's the reason we weren't there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's good that we're hearing something while moving forward, because it's the same thing that you hear every year, and everybody's like, "Oh, is it going to open?" Well, I mean, this is a really weird situation for everyone. So at least they're doing something and moving forward. Now, I will say, well, actually, the other thing is we don't know what it's going to be like for what protocols they'll need for people to be in the stands, and that's a huge part. I mean, I know you get a lot of money through the back gate.
Someone I also want to touch base on, because it is confusing in New Jersey right now, because Bridgeport is racing. They're only allowed 250 people in the grandstands. They're willing to race with 250 people in the grandstands. Diane might not be willing to race 250 people in the grandstands because she's not going to make any money. You got to remember, it's a business. She's got to make money.
And if you're not, I'm sorry, let me put it in this perspective. If you're someone working at the track and now you reach number 251 and they start throwing a hissy fit and screaming, do you really want to deal with all the people that are going to be so upset that they're diehard fans? And
I tell you what, Bridgeport's been doing a good job with that, because they put right on Facebook, we're allowed to sell 250 tickets. They're on sale now. And they've been saying, all right, we sold 200. There's still 50 left. If you want to be a part of this, buy it now. Like they've been honest and upfront about it. Another thing that makes it a little bit confusing is New Egypt's opening up this weekend, and they're allowing fans in the grandstands. But here, what it comes down to is it comes down to what town you're in. I did hear there was town officials at practice Saturday at Wall Stadium walking around with suits on, making sure. So Wall Township might be stricter than New Egypt Speedway in New Egypt, and then down where Bridgeport's at, they might not be as strict as New Egypt. So you don't know. You what the state says you can do and what the town says you can do are two different things. So Diane's dealing with a short town, Wall strict, so she's got somebody else to answer to too. I mean, I don't know why, but I have a feeling we'll be racing at Wall Stadium by August. That's my guess. But then again, things are starting to close up again. You just don't. I should rephrase that. I don't know if we're going to be racing by August, because before we came on the show, I don't know if you guys saw on Facebook, but the Lakewood Blue Claws just canceled their season.
Oh, I did not see that. Wow.
Every time we see like a major something closed, like what information did they get to do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Lakewood Blue Claws canceled their season, and they're only 10 miles from Wall Stadium, so that kind of scares me.
And as Josh knows, we all like conspiracies on this show. I think, for whatever reason, not to get political, that this thing's going to go full circle again. And who's to say that we're not going to go backwards instead of forwards? So, like Scott said, nothing's guaranteed here.
Well, actually, adding to that is the Cape May Lewes Ferry which I know a lot of people, if you're from New Jersey, you've taken that ferry going down to the NASCAR race at Dover.
Yep.
They've been operating, but they've been closed to foot passengers or walk-on passengers, and they were set to open again at I think at a reduced capacity, but they said they've had a huge problem with people not wearing their masks and stuff. And looking at the numbers, there's been more of an outbreak in Delaware near their port, so they had to hold off. They're not opening to walk-on passengers for a while yet. They were set to in a couple days. Now that's been canceled and postponed.
That's when me and Nancy were on vacation. We talked about it. I said our racing, we just got to plan race by race because, like right now, like I just told you, I have like 3 races planned. But really, you got to go race by race because by the time I get to that 3rd race, they might be canceled. They might be closed again. You don't know.
Yeah.
My brother loves when I tell my Florida Keys stories, but I'm just going to tell you a quick one. We went to the Florida Keys. We flew down there. We got down there on a Sunday, and it was
How many times did you ride your bike around Dale Jr.'s house, hoping to see you in the window?
Well, we looked for Dale Jr.'s house in Key West, but we only did it for a little while because it was hot out. But anyway, well, we flew into Fort Lauderdale on a Sunday when they were having the Cup race at Homestead. Well, when we got out of the plane in Fort Lauderdale and got a rental car, it was raining. We're going down the Florida Turnpike, and we seen signs for Miami Homestead Speedway. So I said, well, it rained, so maybe they're still racing because it was late, and they were. She got it on her phone on MRN, and she's like, Scott, it's lap 85. Let's drive over to the racetrack, because we're going right past it. So we drove over to the racetrack, and it was weird because it was like damp and like rain, like misting and like foggy and stuff. And you see, like, when you go to Miami Homestead, like you're actually driving through this nice town, like nice houses, palm trees and everything. And at the end of their main road, this opens up into a field and there's a NASCAR track there. So you're driving through this like fancy town, and we just pull up to this huge racetrack, all lit up, race cars on the track, nobody there. Like the place is empty. You know what I'm saying? There was a couple cops there, a couple cones set up here and there, but it wasn't as tight security as I thought. So me and Nancy rode around the parking lot, and we found a place where we could park and see a little bit. We could see him going down the back straightaway into turn 3 and coming out of 4, So we stayed there for a little while and watched, and we had it on the radio and we listened to it just for a little while. Just so 10 years from now, we can say, hey, remember during the pandemic, we went to Homestead and there was nobody there and we watched a little bit of the race, But we sat there for about 10 or 15 minutes and we left. But what the point I'm getting to with the story and with the racing is, when we got to Florida, it was like wide open, like no mask, no nothing. Just walk in wherever you want. Restaurants were open. Well, we were there for 8 days. By the time we left, everything was closing up again because all their numbers spiked down there. And, by Wednesday, you had to wear a mask. By Thursday, some of the restaurants just closed. And by the time we flew out of there Sunday, everything was pretty closing up again. And I'm afraid that's going to happen up here too. And it kind of is already.
Yeah. I think especially like you said, with more of the shore towns where people are trying to get to the beaches and stuff like that, which I don't know. I mean, for me, we
got to know a local girl down there that worked at a winery. Sorry to cut you off, Josh, but I kind of promised myself there was 2 things I wasn't going to talk about in this podcast. One was the pandemic, and the other one was the Bubba Wallace stuff. But I just wanted to touch a little bit on the pandemic. We went to a winery down there, and we were literally the only people in there. And the girl that was giving us the wine test, she was a wine tasting. She was a local girl. And I asked her how long was she out of work? When did she come back to work? She's like, we just opened back up. I said, why are the numbers spiking down here? And she had a good theory. Her theory was the reason the numbers were spiking down there, not because people were going out again and people were giving it to each other. She said what happened down there, if you wanted to go back to work and your company opened back up, you had to go get tested before you went back to work. So she thinks it spiked because
people that were carrying it.
If there's 100,000 people wanting to go back to work, they had to go get tested. So if you get 5,000 of them that had it, they had it. They know it now because they had to get tested to go back to work.
Right.
Well, conspiracy.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know. I'm really afraid that.
That's what I'm saying. Unfortunately, we might go full circle, and we might be.
We might.
Anything's possible.
Like I said, I was feeling good about Wall Stadium opening up because they were having tech and tires and they were having practices and stuff. But like I said, before we came on the show tonight, I noticed the Lakewood Blue Cross called it quits and they canceled the whole 2020 season. So like Tim says, they might know something we don't know, and Wall might not be far behind, unfortunately. That's why I'm trying to sneak in much racing as I can out of state while they're still open, you know?
Well, it's weird because for me, a lot of it's been normal because other than going to Wawa for my coffee in the morning,
You're not doing anything different.
I'm still working. I'm still inspecting fire hydrants and stuff like that. And most of my work, I'm by myself, so I don't need to wear my mask.
Right. So you really don't notice it. It hasn't really changed your lifestyle that much other than racetrack.
Other than initially, the Parkway traffic was awesome. Now it's starting to suck again.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Like I think I sat my first traffic jam in like 3 months, like last week. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, I don't miss this part of it.
So,
Tim, just a real quick question, kind of a personal question. If Wall Stadium opened this weekend and had a 100-lap modified race, would you take your daughters to it? Or would you be a little afraid to have them in a crowd that size? So I talked to Mom about it. She told me she don't think she would go right away and sit in the grandstands right now.
I'm more afraid, from what I understand, fat people die from it more than kids do. I'm more worried about myself dying. If I get it, I'm dead because I can't breathe now.
Yeah, but you went to Evergreen, and there was a good crowd there, so I thought maybe.
I sat by myself.
Would you take your daughters to a race right now, or would you wait a little while?
I would say probably as much as they would want to go and I'd want to be there, I probably would stay home and try to watch it on Facebook. Or
see, that's another battle Wall Stadium has too. I think a lot of people would be too nervous to go. Like Pennsylvania, Josh, it's weird. We're out in Pennsylvania in the Pocono Mountains, beautiful weather, crisp, clean air in the Pocono Mountains. You're not thinking germs and pandemic. Down in New Jersey, you are. You know, we're more
concrete jungle. Yeah.
You know?
Well,
no, Tim nailed it there. I agree. But if you look at what Bridgeport did, we talked about them opening. Now, to be fair, we did want to read off results. I've searched Facebook, the message board, the South Jersey message board, and the Bridgeport website, and I cannot find results from the races. I can find current point standings. That's it. So we wanted to read that off, but we can't find the info right now.
Yeah, we just want to mention a couple things about Bridgeport. Number one, brand new racetrack down here. Boy, does it look cool. They advertise it as a 0.4 of a mile, so it's a little bit smaller than a half mile. High bank, wide, beautiful lighting, nice wall and catch fence around the whole thing. Track looks racy. July 18th, I have an 8-cylinder Enduro type style race down there, and I'm looking forward to racing that race. I can't wait to get out on that racetrack. The track looked awesome. Ryan Go Down did win the modified race. We do know that much. There is video of it on Facebook, but we don't have the results. I just wanted to touch base that Lee Allen finished third. Lee Allen's a good supporter of our show, and he's a great dirt racer. He started third, finished third. I did see Vern McLaughlin out there, Josh. He was running third or fourth, and Lee got by him, and I don't know where he ended up. But he was out there. He's another name we knew. I know this. I think his name is Richie Stinson. He won the race. He wins all the time when I go down there in street stocks. Great racing, great track. It was Danny's dream. Danny's dream's finally coming to fruition down there, and it's happening. Unfortunately, Danny's not with us anymore to enjoy it, but the track looks awesome. They are racing this weekend. If anybody wants to go down there and check it out, July 5th they're having a race. They do only allow 250 people in the grandstands. You did have a thing on Facebook that they do have still have about 50 tickets left. So if you want to go, order your ticket because you're not going to be able to buy it at the gate. But
I was going to say the one good thing that they were doing is they broadcast it via the internet.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, that's where a lot of the video I saw.
I tell you what, I'll tell you a quick funny story. We were sitting with one of Anthony Cecili's guy and his girlfriend in the grandstands at Evergreen. They left right after the modified feature at Evergreen and shot down to Bridgeport. Watch, and we almost did the same thing because we even though we stayed for the rest of the show except the street stock race, so we left after the Evergreen mod race. They had a rain delay down at Evergreen at Bridgeport, so they were behind schedule down there. We were actually on the northeast extension, almost into Pennsylvania Turnpike almost into New Jersey, and she called one of her buddies. Nancy called one of her buddies at the track. They're like, "We're running concies. If you guys want to come watch the features, come on down." But the reason we didn't do it is because they already sold out the grandstands. But it's kind of a weird COVID type thing. Like,
Yeah.
they're only allowed to sell 250 grandstand tickets, but they can sell unlimited pit passes.
So you could have, yeah, okay.
Could have went down and bought a pit pass, but the problem is they don't have the pit side grandstands up yet. So there's really they were saying there's really no place to watch the race from on the pit side.
Okay.
You had to stand in the old pit grandstands, which is kind of far away from the track, and you had to get up top to see over the billboards. So they're not quite set up for that yet. Another thing is it's $20 to get in the grandstands, it's $40 to get in the pits, you know. And we had 3 people, so it would have been another $120. We got laid out after we had enough racing, you know, that day up at Evergreen. We had a nice day, so we decided to call it quits and just go home. You know, we had to go to work Monday morning. But yeah, we almost did the double, the Evergreen Bridgeport double.
But I will say, looking at well, I saw Johnny Gasco, I think it was, post that he was watching. I think it was like on the NBC Sports Gold thing. He was watching, I think, the ARCA race or something, and he had Bridgeport on another screen.
Yeah, and he had like the Xfinity race on TV.
Yeah. So it was, and that's,
I didn't know, but Evergreen was on Speed 51.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Even better. So it's one of those things that I wish that the tracks could sell, and I know we've talked about it in the past, but this would kind of be a prime thing if you can't open the grandstands to really anything. I mean, what's 250 people?
At least you got to try the pay-per-view thing.
Yeah, if you had everybody pay $1 or $2, I mean. And you know, especially like now, I mean, I could even try. Well, I mean, I don't know how well I could do, but like, what if I went there with a couple cameras and did a broadcast for Wall, and then, you know, people paid $1 or $2. You just have a handful of people in to run the stuff.
You know, in this day and age, people are so used to just clicking on it and getting it. That extra mindset that I have to pay $1 for it screws everybody up.
It does. It really does.
You know, like,
yeah.
A perfect example of it last year were the ticket sales for Turkey Derby. People got so worried because they had to do the extra step to pay for it that it just screwed everybody up. You know, if you could click on it and automatically charge you, it would be fine. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm sure they could.
We got going on this weekend locally is July 4th. New Egypt Speedway is opening back up. They even have fireworks. So if you want to come and not social distance and sit with thousands of people that might have COVID.
That's open to the public and anybody can go?
Now,
that's what they're saying.
Now, you talked about Bridgeport before. Now, I know Chris Felber ran down at Bridgeport with Lee Allen and them, and he said he had an absolute blast on that track. Now, he
You know what? You can set cones up in a parking lot, and Chris Felber will have a blast racing around them. So that doesn't mean Bridgeport new racetrack is great. Chris Felber can have fun racing anywhere.
That's true. But I did talk to him earlier. Sorry, Tim. Let me. I'll just give me a second.
Good.
Good. I did hear that there was some drama going on with New Egypt regarding their. I don't know if you want to call them. Was it outlaw stocks, street stocks, whatever they have?
Yeah, they're like late models.
Yeah, they opened up the rules for them now.
Yeah, and Felber said he wasn't going to race at New Egypt now because apparently they've switched to the modified tire for these outlaw stocks.
I don't know if they went to the modified tire, but they are running the wide 5 hubs. That's what he might be talking about.
Yeah, well, yeah, he did mention that as well. And I mean, there's nothing stock about the.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're beautiful race cars. Todd Deach built a beautiful race car over there, but they're far past street stocks. But then when you talk to Todd, he makes some valid points too. He's like, Scott, it's not 1980 anymore. It's 2020. You know, I can buy an aluminum wide 5 hub cheaper than you can buy a metric hub. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can go, that's what's for sale in these swap meets now. Like, you know, like he makes a valid point, but they're like a limited late model they pretty much built there. I do like the Bridgeport street stocks a little bit better because they look like street stocks. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, that's where I was going. I mean, you get more to that stock, and
right.
I'll accept your argument on availability of parts, but I also know that, you know, the G body style is still popular. So there are aftermarket versions of a lot of that
Yeah,
stuff.
maybe they have to run. You have to run this body or this body. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, the body, but also don't give me tube chassis. Give me give me that mild steel garbage chassis that we all have to deal with because as soon as you're if you're spending the money on a
TJ's car and he did beautiful work, it's a beautiful race car, but it's past the street stock. You know what I'm saying?
Todd does incredible work. But it's also you're looking at a expensive chassis, and then if you already have the money to dump into the chassis, you probably have the money to dump into a motor. And I'm not look if you can do a job and make that money, great, more power to you. I'm not talking about socialism here. I'm just saying there's a whole bunch of people that deserve to race but can't afford to be in that
every
bracket.
division goes through a 10-year span. They start out cheap, and in 10 years, they're like a full. They go beyond what they started out as, and then they start over again. Now it's a factory stock, and they started that last 10 years, and it's a street stock again. Like I heard an interview with I think it was Jack or Root or somebody like that, and he said divisions in short track racing, they have a 10-year span, and in 10 years they're not what they were intended to be from the beginning because every year they evolve. So it's like every 10 years you got to wipe them out and start over again.
So when does that happen for the factory stock so I can get back in?
They're going. I mean, this is a whole nother debate, but now they're even our factory stock division is going to a 602 crate motor. So we're
crate motor.
I mean,
the
Josh,
tires.
I still have the same car I built in to race 2012, and here's 2020. I still have that car, and it's a lot different than what it was in 2012. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
every year they let you got a little bit more and add a bar here and do this and do that, and before you know, it's a street stock.
They're almost back to what you guys raced before these.
Exactly.
What do they call that?
I understand. I mean, the beautiful. I mean, Rob Ormsby built a beautiful street stock for New Egypt. Todd Deach built a beautiful one. Sean Wall's got a beautiful car. There's some beautiful cars over there, but in my eyes, are the street stocks now? They're more like a limited late model than me.
Yeah, I agree.
And I even looked at Lee Allen's Bridgeport street stocks, and they're borderline not street stocks anymore, but they're closer to a street stock than what you're allowed to do at New Egypt.
So but that's you're probably gonna see a ton of people going to Bridgeport instead of New Egypt just because of that.
Yeah. Well, we'll see here. We'll see here. That's something to keep an eye on this weekend. July 4th and July 5th, they're both racing. We'll see what the car counts are like at both tracks.
Yeah, I agree. And nothing against New Egypt. They're trying to run a track. Bridgeport's trying to run a track. Wall's trying to. Everybody's trying to do.
I just. This is something that's always going on in racing. Like you have two dirt tracks, not too far from each other. The rules should be the same. This way you draw cars from each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, but they always make the rules a little bit different, so you're stuck at their track and can't go to the other track.
Yep. It's one track thinking about itself, not the other track. They don't want you to go to the other track.
Well, how many times have we seen something like they wanted to do a tri-track modified series or something like that?
I mean, I love New Egypt Speedway, and I'm actually going to be working there this Saturday. We're actually going to take my tow truck over and work at it.
Ooh.
But from an outsider looking in, I think Bridgeport might have the upper hand only because they have a brand new racetrack, and everybody just always likes going to a brand new race. Like they're the new kid in town. You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's what I was trying to say.
I remember 10, 15 years ago, New Egypt was the new kid in town when they went dirt racing. You know what I'm saying? So it goes in spurts.
Let's hope for the best for both places. But what I wanted to say before trying to get in is a lot of people. When Danny picked that track, a lot of people said it wasn't going to work because it was
Danny did pick that. Danny Serrano went on like a tour of the country. He pretty much went to every racetrack around, and the people out on Bridgeport said, "Kind of pick out a racetrack that you like, and we're going to make it." Because the 5/8 was a little too big, a little too fast. You needed $1 million motor to win there. They wanted to downsize the track a little bit and make a perfect size track where everybody can race and afford to race it. And Danny picked out this track. I forget the name of the track he picked out, but he picked it out. And some of the people complained that it's a great racetrack, but it's a sprint car track. It's not going to be a great modified track. It's not going to be a great street stock track. It's built for sprint cars. Danny picked the wrong track. And I tell you what, I watched that video clip, and I thought the street stock racing was awesome. I think the modified racing was awesome. I think the 602 crate race was awesome. And I'm excited to get down there with my 8-cylinder indoor car because I think
there was multiple lanes,
multiple lanes, big, wide, plenty of room to pass.
A lot of banking.
The ones that were going full bore into 1 and washing up in 2, and then actually making the track longer, the straightaway longer, and shooting down off the banking like that, getting a big speed off the bank like that.
I watched part of the video where Vern McLaughlin was all the way down at the bottom of the track, and Lee Allen was already up at the top of the track, and it looked like he was 40 feet above Vern McLaughlin.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, higher than that's how back the track is. I'm trying to figure out what gear I'm going to run down there. You know.
Ooh, yeah.
Like Tim
that's
said, you can have one gearing, and if you're screaming the motor, you're gonna have to go around the bottom, and then that'll be where you're at. And then if you don't have a gear, you go to the top, and then your gearing's good up there. You know.
Scott, are you aiming to be in second gear or third?
Second.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, if it's screaming, you can pop that sucker into third and see what you
Yeah,
got
then
going.
your ratio's way off. then you go from like a 592 to a 390. Yeah, you pop it in the drive, and that's straight through. All right, guys, let's start wrapping it up here. It's 10:05.
We have to. Before that, we have to talk about the huge NASCAR news. Natalie Decker and her gallstones or whatever.
Yeah, she was real sick. She was in the hospital since Tuesday.
Yeah,
I haven't heard if she's out or not yet.
That was complications from a surgery she had.
Real quick, I know we said we weren't going to talk about NASCAR. I just wanted to put this out there and see how you feel about it, Josh. They had triple races at Pocono. You know what it reminded me of that we got robbed from this year? It reminded me of Memorial Day. You know, when you have Monaco.
Oh, yeah.
Indy 500 and the Coke 600. That's what it felt like. Like the trucks were Monaco, the Xfinity race was the Indy 500, and the Cup race at night was the Charlotte 600. That's what that day felt like to me.
We were all, well, me and Scott were. I don't know what Josh we were doing. We were at the racetrack, and you were doing what you were doing. Is that too much racing?
I don't think it's.
Well, I mean, yeah, they just had. This was nothing planned. It just happened.
No, I didn't say that. I was saying
it was too much racing. And on top of it, they had a couple rain delays too.
Well,
day, so yeah,
my complaint is more that it's Pocono, and I like going to Pocono because it's closer, but it's not the most exciting track.
I tell you what, though, the racing was good, though. It really was. Yeah. Like there were some good wrecking in 4 or 5 wide racing.
Did you see Brady running into Kyle Busch? See that?
Yeah, Kyle Busch got dumped. There were some hard wrecks. The trucks and the Xfinity, there were some hard wrecks.
He got dumped. He did.
All right, guys, let's wrap this up. What have we learned?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's hit it.
I'll do a quick what have we learned. Okay. I learned that Evergreen can still hold a big event and do very well doing it. I learned that Larry Spencer is a very good announcer, and he's very knowledgeable in Pennsylvania, and he's welcome on here anytime. I learned that the pierogies at Evergreen are very good, and I think that was the best bet at the concession stand. And I learned that my brother gets to a racetrack way too early.
Well, no, because Tim, you said you had, 2 people in front of you still?
Yeah, there was 2 haulers that got there before us.
Those bastards. All right, Tim, what did you learn?
I learned basically the same thing as Scott did. I learned that the people at Evergreen can handle an event like that. I mean, I know under the circumstances, they probably thought they were going to get more people than normal, but there was a lot of people there, and they did an excellent job of keeping everything going smoothly.
Tim, I left before the race was over. You left at the end of the day.
I left. Out of there? No, I left about 5 minutes after you did. We didn't.
Oh, okay, yeah, because we drove right out of there.
We drove right out of there, and God bless anybody that's ever been there and knows what I'm talking about. God bless anybody that drives a hauler through there.
Oh yeah, it's tough to get down in there.
The truck drivers should get trophies, and not the race car drivers there.
One quick story: when I pulled out of the track, there's a house directly across the street from the entrance getting into the track, and they were doing family haircuts outside at the picnic table when we were pulling out.
Did you see 2 little girls on the side of the road watching the race above the track there?
No, I didn't.
Were they the twins from The Shining?
Really were matching dressings.
And I learned Larry Spencer. He's welcome anytime on here. He did an awesome job.
I want to have him back on maybe next week, even if we can get back into NASCAR stuff.
And
I want to hear your Pennsylvania joke.
And me being fat, I want to answer Scott's question that I didn't get to answer before. That how he said, what's like the one thing that hasn't changed or changed in your life from pandemic, and you said coffee. Mine is hot out of the oven Pete and Elder's pizza. I can't wait to get a hot out of the oven Pete Elder's pizza. Now I know you can go to the track, you can go there and order them, bring them home, but it's not the same. So
Can you eat it in the parking lot?
Same thing. They said Pete and Elder's pizza is their favorite pizza, but it doesn't travel well. And I thought that was funny when they said
it doesn't travel well. Once it's cold,
I just never heard it called that. Like, travel. They said like you pick the pizza up, you drive a half hour home, and it doesn't travel well. It doesn't taste as good.
It loses the magic.
Yeah.
And another question I forgot, but that was it. So I guess I'm done.
Larry Spencer was a lot of fun. Hey, maybe it's just because we've been off for a couple weeks, but I really think we should have him back on next week if he's available. But anyway, moving from that, what have I learned today? Today I learned that Larry sweet talked the concession girl out of her meat.
He got half a cheesesteak at least.
I learned that Scott thinks that less horsepower is good at Evergreen.
Is that what I said? I heard you laughing when I said that. I said, What did I say wrong?
Yeah, you forgot the S. I learned that Larry thinks Rebecca is smooth. And I learned that New Hampshire is damn near Canada. So,
all right, guys, that wraps up episode 176 of the RPM podcast. I just want to apologize that we haven't been on for the last few weeks. I got busy with the towing company. We did go away for 10 days, which was a couple of weeks. And when I got back, the towing business was slamming when I got back because people waited for me to come back. Plus, I was taking in new work, so I wasn't able to do it, and I apologize for that. Hopefully, from here on out, we'll be able to keep doing it on Mondays or Tuesdays, and hopefully Larry will come back. This weekend, we can't say go to Wall unless you want to go there for practice. But go to New Egypt, go to Bridgeport. Let's watch some local racing.
Yeah, support your local racing, and hopefully Tim and I will get a new conspiracy podcast. I was planning on doing that, and that just didn't happen. So anyway, support your local tracks as best you can, and we'll see you next week.
Wash your hands.
Wear your mask.
All right, good night, guys.
Good night.